Boom. Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Altered Weekly Online League, also known as AWOL Monday, Week 6. I, of course, am Blue, and joining me today will be Runefolk. How are you doing today?
Hello, hello. Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Excited for what's coming today. I've already seen a lot of players, and I think I've got told it was almost full like 24 hours ago, the tournament.
Yep.
That's quite impressive.
And I've also noticed that the names are not changing on our end. So I am, in fact, guest one, and he is, in fact, guest two. Let me go ahead and make sure that for whatever reasons it's not switching. Let's see here. But yeah, we have a lot of games going on here for the week 6 and obviously filled up quite early comparative to our Wednesday setup normally, but still quite a good amount for everyone getting into this event. We're 5 minutes off to the start of the event itself. Excited to see what we have going here. Happy. Hopefully, we get everyone just to stay of the 128 without dropping out. Seems like a lot of people have been nice enough to share the spots when they have dropped out. But other than that, Room Folk, is there anything in particular you're looking forward to for this event on this week?
Today, I've looked a bit through the player lists, and I'm I'm always interested to see what Nero is playing. I think the last times I've seen him on the tournaments, he was mostly on, I think, a festival Rin list. That was pretty exciting. Otherwise, I think currently third on the leaderboard, Wulitz. He's got some pretty exciting Sigismar uniques that I'm looking forward. And yeah, I think I haven't looked too much. Oh yeah, yeah, Zoa, one of the players that got undefeated in one of our AQZ events, also participates again on probably on Lindeef, and that's also very exciting.
Yeah, Lindy or Lindaway, depending on how you want to pronounce things these days, is definitely seems to get a little bit more popular as far as different folks trying out different deck lists for that hero, and they seem to be working out somewhat well at the very least. Always good
Yeah.
to see some other Ysmir heroes getting some popularity, whether it is the sacrifice hero or even a little bit of a Kesha, which you are quite familiar with yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very cool to see when that happens, and hopefully we get to see some other heroes step up and do well on their own. Always used to the Sigismars and the Aphonises of the world and the uniques that we might see pop up there, but the different stuff and occasionally when we had Hyper K do really well with the Tasia was always nice. So yeah, should be a good time overall. Still at 128 players in total, I believe. So no one has. Oh, we got one drop. If anyone wants to get in, hurry, get in. Now's the time. But yeah, one drop coming in, but I'm sure we'll hit that 128 mark. A lot of different folks that can take it thus far. Do you have any surprises that you may be looking for before we start this event?
Surprises. I think not really. I myself currently preparing a deck that I've spoiled a bit last week. But last week in the AWOL chat when it was over on Monday. But yeah, the deck is looking quite okay, but it loses into Sigismar currently. So yeah, not really planning on bringing that soon. But yeah,
Got to keep refining, figure out exactly what you can get in there in general as far as the
yeah,
best decks and everything before you let them out into the wild or people try to discover them on your hidden accounts or something just to find out
exactly.
whatever you're putting in them kind of thing, right? But yeah, we're about 3 minutes away. I want to thank everyone that has been joining us thus far, all the peoples that are saying hi in chat, what's going on. We have our first in the chat with Cole Robbie, getting everything set up. But everyone else, do appreciate you
I'm also seeing
joining us
already.
here in AWOL. What's up?
I already also see Freeloader in the chat. I haven't seen him on the player lists. So it seems like he didn't get in today, but yeah, I think in general, only one of our AQZ members joined today in Void. I'm not seeing any Keylons, any Phronicos or freeloaders. So yeah, pretty much
Ye
AQZ-less event, except
yeah,
on
it's
the cast, of course.
Yeah, that's what happens when, like, these events fill up too quickly, especially Keelan guy and him showing up last minute on stuff. You can't
Yeah,
you can't wait for these. You gotta get in there. But yeah, if worst case scenario, we do have Freeloader in the chat, can provide us some great insight from the chat itself and let us know when we're saying things wrong or if we're missing stuff in general. But yeah, not too bad. We're 1 minute away now, and as soon as we get to the start of the Swiss rounds, we should be jumping into some good games. I think you mentioned this to me earlier, but a lot of folks from the Altered Aces joining in to these games thus far. I'll be curious to see how well they do overall.
yeah. We'll probably see a bunch of team matchups today from Altered Aces just because they are all pretty good and well, there are so many of them. So I'd expect a lot of them to go to the top tables, and then they probably have to eliminate each other. So that will be fun, interesting to see. And I think Altered Aces is also streaming in French, so that will most likely be highlighted on their stream. But I'm not sure if a single person is doing it or if they're viewing different games. But yeah, that's definitely a lot of high potential for team battles.
Definitely, definitely. And we did, in fact, get the start of the Swiss rounds here. I'm going to switch over to the gameplay screen as I fix some stuff here to make sure that everything is working correctly for everyone. And jumping over here, get the weekly so everyone can see that. And then there, and then there. Perfect. All right, let's switch on over to a refresh to see what rounds that we have going here and pick someone. And as expected, we see a lot of altered aces here on the in the start of some of the tables and a lot of teams in general. Um, Anyone that you want to start off with, or should I just pick
Uh,
at random?
I was looking at table 23, Alea versus RGT Sabai. Both of the players were last minute signups. Both joined like 3 minutes before the event, and it's funny to me that they both were paired against each other. And I'm not sure, but uh, Sabai is from RJT, and I believe Erlea is from Exalts, but I'm not too sure on that.
I believe Relaya is from Exalts as well. Saw them earlier on in the Discord with the Exalts tags, I believe,
Yeah.
correct. So we'll go on over to that. I'll switch on over and we can take a look at the game as it's just starting for everyone. And
And
we can see
interestingly,
what's happening here.
already an Akesha against Sabai on Sigismar.
Yeah, we do get that Akesha that I was looking for, so I'll be excited to see what they decide to run in this setup here. I think at this point, a lot of different folks have tried different ways to make Akesha work. We have the good old fashioned hostage Akesha that you are familiar with, but there's definitely
Yeah.
some other variations of the hero, whether that is using a considerable amount of exhausting and mothing or just going completely without something like a withered tree and focusing on a lot more spells and working around that.
Yeah, I think the most successful Akesha player recently was Newbie Boy, and he was playing a list that looked more like an Afanas list to me, so a lot of shit spells, and well, the after you came in very nicely for them. So yeah, uh, but I don't really expect a lot of other people to play Hostage Akesha. I've only seen Chocoboy, Chocobar so far play that as well, but a different version than I played. And last week I said, well, my list is better, but well, on that day I performed much worse, so I'm not too sure about that anymore. So yeah,
Yeah, we do see a unique Sneezer Shroom pop out here. It gains anchored from reserve, and you may discard a card from your reserve if you do return a spell. Didn't have another card to discard from the reserve at this point to return the magical training. So maybe looking at that here potentially this next day. or maybe not. We'll see how it turns out. But either way, we get a one for one there with just that Ordis Trooper helping out the Sigismar. And we'll wait
But
for the things to start here. Is there anything in particular, knowing, I guess, the matchups in general? I know you don't really focus on this particular type of Akesha potentially, but is there anything in particular when you're playing Akesha and going up against the Sigismar matchup that you're looking for?
you're you're most likely, I think it's called basically zigzag playstyle, where you try to play as so slow that you already always see what your opponent's planning to do, and then as soon as they are focusing on one expedition, you just try to focus on the other one and try to always go for one for one, and then at the end most likely win with a small step. But I'm not sure that that's actually still that term is still used a lot. So yeah, but I think the Akasha just tries to trade a bunch and
Definitely.
yeah, play their characters as late as possible.
We do see that Sneezer Shroom used for the quick effect in order to return that magical training to hand, so not a bad use of it there. One thing that I was going to ask with the Kesha is that it seems like there is a lot of use of that zigzag for Kesha and even a Faunus on occasion in order to get in range to do the small step giant leap. But the Afanis itself also does have the opportunities to get those 2 O's to either catch up or just put them in this spot of automatically winning. Do you see that very often on the Akesha side of things, where you're not necessarily able to boost characters up as much because you don't have that ability that Afanis does?
For Kesha, I believe they are much more focusing on removing characters so that they can therefore get an advantage, and they can't they have to really rate out what their opponent is doing. So for example, this magical training that's currently in the reserve, you're not playing this, for example, as a last card in your turn. Just be able to play to see what your opponent is doing, and just stall for 1 mana.
Yeah, and curiously enough, we do see the common Baba Yaga come out for the Akesha, opposed to the rare version that has slightly more stats, instead just preferring the ability to draw a card, as well as being playing that magical training multiple times to draw a card as a whole. So it definitely seems like they're digging here to have as much possible in hand to deal with removal and taking some stuff off for the Sigismar. So we'll see how that turns out. They are still even on the board, so not doing bad or getting overrun by the Sigismar in case the Sigismar decided to play something like a Grand Endeavor early on because they are 2 or 3 spots up on the expeditions.
Yeah, and this common Baba Yaga also plays also fits the description of what I just mentioned, that you're trying to play slow, and you don't really care about having big characters because you're committing them late to the board, where your opponent already can't really uh, really react to that. So you're just always advancing when you're playing your characters. But of course, that's not always possible. But in theory, that's how Akesha would like to play.
Yeah, it seems like
And
there's definitely some other rares that you would want in your deck list a lot of the time, as a Kesha in order to proceed with that type of gameplay that you're talking about. So I think that makes sense overall.
recently, Keelan told me that I was calling out an a cash up an Afanas player that only played common Baba Yaga over the rare Baba Yaga, and in our opinion, the in Sigisma or in Afanas, the rare Baba Yaga is a lot better than the common one because you're trying to play it first, and your opponent can easily react to that. And then if you're missing out on some stats, it's just much easier to overstat your Baba Yaga on early turns.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like a lot of folks are trying to plan around that first day or that one play off Baba Yaga and getting stats that have like 333 across the board or something to the point of where they're able to block and still advance themselves. So it people, I mean, we know people are gonna play Sigismar, we know people are gonna play Afanis, right? And we know most of the time they're gonna be trying to play Baba Yaga to draw and everything, so if you can find a way to outdo them at least a little bit there early on, I'm sure it'll definitely help, and we do see a card that we don't see very often in general as far as the Pamola, the Moose Man, able to get that little stat over the top there in the mountain terrain over on the hero side and do another one for one, helping out with that little zigzag strategy that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and I believe in Akesha Pamela is played actually quite a lot, even in lists that aren't so exhaust heavy and are not relying on the Nilam. I think yeah, I think it's just the 3 stat line on the 2 cost is very efficient, and I believe that's just the reason why it's played.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually one of the reasons why even I like running, or I've at least been trying cards like Scotty on Bravo stacks because it has that 2/3/2 stat line and it's only 2 costs from hand originally. And I can use it to exhaust from reserve, but I honestly just like playing it from hand a lot of times and surprising people with that 3 cost stat line. But we will see that the quick effect slash the portability being used to exhaust one of those Ordish troopers for the Sigismar. They won't be able to slow play more than once unless they have another 1 cost. And then we'll go ahead and see a reduced cost Spycraft being played to knock out the other one.
That's interesting, and I can't believe that that's a resupply that the Akasha likes to see, especially just having exhausted the second trooper. So there's not really much value out of sabotaging a second time. And yeah, now they're basically stuck with 3 cards in hand, and well, they still have their hero ability. This is once more see what the Sigismar is planning to do. But here we see the gift of self to just sacrifice the token from the hero ability of Sigismar to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, Gift of Self being added to some of these Sigismar deck lists is an interesting one. It was a card that I tried early on in season one, and I liked it to a certain extent, but I felt like there was other like better options as far as rares. And at the time, we were still allowed to use cards like Ozma, so we didn't necessarily need the additional draw if you're playing the Sigismar or any Ortis deck list, specifically Sigismar, because you can sacrifice the token, right? So um, interesting to be seeing it now, potentially if you don't have those uniques that some people have that help you draw some cards that replace the hole that the Ozma left now that it's suspended. Hopefully we'll see it again, or at
Yeah,
least see what's gonna happen with it here soon. But,
yeah. On the last AMA, they already announced that they want to that the errata for Osma and the Bravos Haven for Axiom will be in the patch notes. So yeah, it's interesting to see what they will do with the Osma, and I'm kind of scared that after that Osma will just make Sigisma even better than it already is, and that it will just take the top spots everywhere. And with Freeloader, I've already been speculating a bit how Osma wouldn't be usable for Sigisma, but could be usable for Varu or Gulrang. And the solution we came to was more that it's usable for Varu, but the condition changes to when you control a sleep character.
yeah, I gotcha. That would probably make more sense to not give Sigismar, I guess, even more draw utility than it seems to already have, especially utilizing cards like these bureaucrats and the Ordis Attorney that are just solid for stats. And it kind of just forces your opponent to decide, are they going to let you advance or are they going to let you draw and gain more card advantage? Right. So we'll have to see how that turns out. It'll be curious to see on how they change both of those cards realistically, and we do see that unique Katagir Alchemists going to the reserve. I have to imagine they are not excited having to play that from reserve, especially not getting either of those hand abilities. It lets you put a card from your hand in reserve. If you do, you may discard a permanent, or you can pay one if you do sabotage.
Yeah, resupplying your uniques that are most effective from hand obviously isn't the best, but I think in this spot it was still nice to just get the 1 for 1 and not use any more cards out of hand. Maybe they had another Studios Disciple, so they would still have gotten the 1 for 1, but that way they would have needed to discard a card, and I think therefore the Alchemist just did its job, even though it doesn't feel the greatest. I think it's still fine. And I think a position in the game like this for the Akasha where they're relatively even on cards and just even on expeditions should always favor the deck with the small steps in the deck. And yeah, that's currently all that Akasha's trying to do. Get they even and finish the game with a small step.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see how if that's going to turn out to a victory with a small step. The Sigismar was able to gain a little bit towards cards with those attorneys, but we'll see. I mean, we see a magical training immediately from the Akesha, trying to just draw as much as possible, slow play, and do that zigzag pattern that you were mentioning before, and just keep on going one for one, which they've accomplished thus far with no real bursts from the Sigismar in an attempt to get a 2-0 on the Akesha and get ahead. So definitely seems to be in favor of the Kesha if they're able to pull it out at this point. And hey to everyone in the chat, hey Pandy and whatnot. Thanks for chatting overall. But yeah, we'll have to see how it turns out as far as these new cards patches based off of a guy trying saying it'll be on the 21st. So not that much longer to wait. I'll also be curious to see if I know they said they were focusing on the idea of getting those suspended cards, like, back in play overall, but
Yeah.
I'll also be curious to see if they're able to add some other cards to the list. It seems like some people, like the small step giant leap, potentially could be looked at, and, honestly, it wouldn't be surprising to see things like the Grand Endeavor be looked at as well for the Sigismar, because it doesn't do the same thing, it has counterplay, but it is also one of those things where it kinda puts a clock on the game, and I don't know if they're necessarily something that's what they want to see or not.
Yeah. To be honest, I personally wouldn't like the Grand Endeavor seeing a Grand Endeavor nerf since I'm currently using it in one of my decks, and well, I'm kind of putting a clock on the game with it, but the game is just over anyway, and that's just my win condition in the deck. But yeah, I think in Sigisma the rare Grand Endeavor just gives you a lot of pressure on your opponent, and it's oftentimes very hard to deal with just because your if your opponent tries to remove it, you're in not a Sigisma matchup always going up one just for playing out a landmark that would otherwise, if not contested, also pretty much finish the game for you.
For sure. And we do see a rare out of faction monolith legat coming out here for the Akesha. Seems like they're focusing a lot on sabotaging whenever possible between this and the other sabotage that we saw earlier with the spycraft coming out. So interesting cards being listed here. I gotta be honest, I haven't gotten into many of the other Akesha deck lists other than the ones that you mentioned prior with yourself on the hostage side of things or newbie boys. So it's definitely interesting to see the variations of cards being added to these lists.
Yeah, and I'm not too sure. We still haven't seen any removal spells from the Sigisma, so I think they're still in a position that they could easily go 2 for 0 this day. But this Legat right now contesting the perfect expeditions on the hero side, it's very nice. But
Yeah, I
where
think
is the commitment to the hero companion side from the Sigisma?
yeah, it seems like the Sigismar is just gonna potentially just give up on the hero side, depending on what one cost that they have left.
And we,
I'm
we
pretty
know
sure
there's
that
no trooper left.
yeah, no troopers left, so it'd have to be something like a foundry mechanic potentially, to help themselves out if they you were even running one of those in a rare slot. So we'll see if the Akesha decides to just go for it and take that zigzag and take the hero side and not go with the sabotage for the legat, or if they have something where they think they can advance on the companion side with 4 mana left.
And I think a realistic play here from the Sigismas that they still have a rallying call left in their hand. Hmm.
Definitely one of those one cost cards introduced in the Trial by Frost set that has benefited Sigismar a lot, whether that is to slow play, to help remove the asleep setup, either when it get hits by something like beauty sleep, which is obviously pretty prevalent on Faunus lists, or something along those lines. But instead, we'll see the Kesha just go for the off you go, and I pass from the Sigismar. So we once again go one for one.
Yeah, that was a very risky off you go. If the Sigismund just had any one cost, they would have went down one, or if it was a foundry mechanic, they would have even went down two expeditions. But this way, it paid off. They managed to not let the Sigismund draw a card with the attorney, and still got the expedition win. And yeah, it looks great from this position for the Akasha, in my opinion.
Indeed, it does. We do have a suggestion for the small step giant leap potential errata. You have to pay $5 every time you cast it. So that would be an interesting setup. I mean, technically, they're gonna connect to wallets once the marketplace shows up. Maybe they
Might
can.
be.
Maybe they could set that up in BGA too, where you have to click a button that's connected to your altered account. Are you sure you want to play Small Step Giant Leap? But see how that like has to happen.
My
As we
idea for the small step was make it keep it on 6 cost, but it says can't be played if you have less than 10 mana ops, or something like that.
mm, that would be interesting. Or if they have some variation of it to where, um, you know how things like the whale have toughness based off of the separation
Yeah,
of your expeditions. They could definitely do something like that to potentially incentivize the idea of using it before you being adjacent, but I don't know if that's actually reasonable or not. But either way, I'm sure they're doing a lot of testing and they'll figure out an appropriate response, potentially to small step, giant leap, if they feel like it needs to be adjusted. Which it feels like that is the overall sentiment for a lot of folks out there. But in the meantime, I'll just be happy to get back the cards that have been suspended thus far, and we haven't had any idea of how they're gonna be changed, in the meantime. So, again, more sabotage coming out of the Akesha, this time in the
yeah,
rare version of the Tooth Fairy. Always a nice little pickup there, especially when you can play it from the reserve as a slow play for only 1 cost. So, nice
yeah.
start there.
And the 2 cost Tooth Fairy from reserve never feels good in any deck, and I think that's also the reason a lot of the Afanas lists, especially when they're on the exhaust line, started cutting the Tooth Fairy from their deck just because it feels so bad to play from reserve.
Yeah, we do see a unique foundry mechanic coming out here from the Sigismar. It's one of those token generators, and it's when when you put another non-token character in your expeditions, create a recruit in your other expedition. So it will be coming out here on the companion side of things. If they start playing some other characters, they only have 3 cards in hand, so we're probably looking at the potential of having 2 characters played, and they have some type of removal available to them as well. So we'll see how this turns out here overall as we see that after you show up here for the Akesha.
Yeah, and also these 1/1 token generators, they are showing up more and more, but mostly from these well-known team members on RJT, or I've seen more of them on the Altered Aces players. They have a lot of these 1/1 token generators. They are just so crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that are quite good, or you even have Clay with the Altered Aces with his Kakoba that allows the 2 tokens being generated for the 4 costs and then just charging everything. That is always scary. It pretty much just guarantees 1 expedition and then potentially both if you already have enough characters out. And there we see that removal that I was mentioning coming out in the Tiny Jail, probably one of the more popular cards being added to Sigismar lists from the Trial by Frost set. And yeah,
Oh, and this is a very nice turnout for a Baku. Just removing the option for of your opponent to play a card and guaranteeing that 1/1. And now the big question is the last card in hand actually the small step?
yep. they have been doing a lot of drawing, and they only have 17 cards in their deck, potentially coming down to 15 here when the new day starts. So we'll see if they're able to capitalize on that zigzag strategy that you mentioned from the very start of just going one for one. That's all we've seen every single day for this game thus far. It literally has been nothing else. So ideal setup here for the Akesha and realistically a lot of Ysmir heroes as a whole. So we'll see if they're able to capitalize on that strategy and just plop down the small step.
Yeah, and I think even if there's no small step available to them, just with this Baku that's all again threatening to discard a card from your opponent's hand, they're basically playing with one card from hand and two cards from reserve. And I think even in that spot, the Akasha seems very favorite to me.
Definitely, and yeah, limited resources here for the Sigismar, even to the point that they had to get rid of that token generator, assuming that they're gonna have to put more stats on the board and they won't have a lot of characters to follow up to generate those tokens, and we're waiting here on the Akesha to mana as the Sigismar decides not to, and we'll find out if we get hit with the small step giant leap.
Yeah, and I've been playing a token generator myself on Sigismar, and it's also a one cost, and it sometimes feels very weird to play your one cost token generators because you have very limited characters available to yourself, and you're thinking, well, is this now actually worth it to play my unique that's relying on me playing a bunch of characters, but I can't really do that. So yeah, it's really interesting to see that the Sigisma actually decided to get rid of the token generator of the unique, but yeah, maybe just not expecting to draw a bunch of characters this turn.
And we're having some stuff here in the chat talking about the different plays. They just are talking about the small step giant leap potential situations and changes. So yeah, feel free to put your opinions in the chat as far as things that you have suggestions for the errata and everything. My personal um token generators are not I have one cost token generator, but it requires a landmark to
Oh,
be in play. So that's unfortunate. The rest of them are 2 costers that have additional effects that are pretty good though, so I'm not crying too much.
yeah, I'm currently just borrowing two of Pluka's best artist uniques, and yeah, he's one with both of the cards I'm currently borrowing, and yeah, that's they are very good, and I can see why he won with them.
Yeah, definitely for the folks out there that are not aware, Runefolk is part of Team AQZ, so is Pluka. And that's one of the benefits that you can see sometimes when you join a team or you have things, other people that you're playtesting with. Occasionally, you can just borrow cards from each other and test some different things out as far as
Yeah.
uniques are concerned. And it's really nice to be able to try things out overall and just see different things that can work that are maybe just not the traditional setup.
Oh, that's very interesting in the game. The Sigisma just played r- their tiny jail just to remove a 1/1/1 tooth fairy, and the Kesha basically did the same, but on a better character in the legate on the
Yeah,
left.
definitely. So it seems like they were trying to potentially force the play from the Akesha in order to use that Baku, because they pretty much know that if they play a card here, that the other card could be gone based off of that rare Baku. But at this point, they can split if they have another character, and they seem to not even have another character potentially.
Uh, That's very crazy, yeah. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything for
It's a
one
tiny
cost.
jail. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
just the read with not drawing characters from last time for the unique was a good call, but just drawing two of your removal spells on the final day feels very bad.
yeah, congrats to the Kesha player there. Well played. So one of those issues that you kind of run into potentially now as a Sigismar player. Originally in season one deck list, you were probably running sub 10 cards between spells and permanents. And now it seems like with the addition of things like Tiny Jail and people using things like Monolith and Grand Endeavor more, than they were previously used, you definitely have an option to brick a little bit if you aren't drawing cards, if you aren't drawing those characters that may not be as prevalent in your whole deck list.
Also, one thing that I'm very annoyed about in my decks, that all of the Sigismar players still running sticky seal notes, and I really don't see the point of that card in the deck. It's just you're bricking way more often when you're playing that card, and I believe currently in the meta, the only card that you actually want to remove is a, say, uh, on 6 mana, a Grand Endeavor, and I think that's the most threatening card currently for Sigismar players. I don't even think Brass Archives are too threatening for Sigismar players, and still everyone is running double of sticky seal notes, and I really don't see the reason for that.
Yeah, it's interesting when that comes. I decided to go to the last game that was available on the list here between uh, Papiet and Mayo Sotis. Um,
Okay.
they're down to like a minute left each. It is a Trace deck versus a Tasia.
Oh, raised is interesting with the Ouroboros.
Yep. Um, yeah, no, it's interesting with the sticky note steals conundrum. It was feeling like you were bricking a lot even in season one with sticky note seals. And it definitely feels like in the meta that is the case now. It just feels like people always have some level of fear of like, but what if I run into someone with a big permanent I want to knock out, you know? But yeah, it's one of those things where you can't cover everything and you just have to do your best to be as consistent as possible. And I don't think it is a bad thing to remove it necessarily, but who knows? We do see a unique Moon Merchant come out that from reserve, you may put a card from your hand in reserve if you do resupply, and it's only 2 cost.
Yeah, and these cards that had the arrow effect during the times of Browse Haven and Axiom were one of the most popular uniques in Traced.
Definitely, and with that play, they were able to get the 2-0 and take that game, so congratulations there for the Trace player. It's fun seeing the variations of Trace now without the Haven and how
Yeah,
people have made that work, on a variety of different levels, so hopefully we get to see a little bit more of that before Haven comes back, and we may see it being played again, but in the meantime, I believe that will be the end of the first round of Swiss. Wanted to say welcome to and thank you for everyone that has joined us thus far. This is the Altered Weekly Online League AWOL Season 2, Monday Weekly, number 6. We are going in to round 2 of the Swiss. I am Blue. I am joined by Runefolk, who is being represented by Navenka because he was entirely too good looking today to be on camera.
exactly. Yeah. And we were talking about this earlier a bit. On table 3, we already have an Altered Aces team matchup with Cladius against Clem.
Sure, let's just go to it. I mean, may as well
Okay.
see what they got going here. I'm pretty sure we're gonna see Cladius on the Sigismar. We may get to see that Kakoba that I was mentioning earlier that strikes the fear into all of his opponents. And we'll switch over here. It is in fact the Sigismar versus a Basira.
Oh, that's interesting. Now I'm definitely rooting for Clem, finally seeing a Basira on stream again. That's very exciting. I was trying a bunch of Basira lists myself. I've been picking up some uniques or one unique that is a cost reduced, what's it called? Occlude. And I'm also playing around with characters that are boosting when characters join the expeditions. And the the list that's probably the worst, but I like a lot, is a list that is focusing on boosting up your gigantic characters with the help of Elon Cylinder or Isan Boshis or whatever boosts your characters to give it a second boost with your hero ability of Basira.
Yep, a lot of different options that we've seen lately for that as we see the Ebenezer Scrooge come out for Clay. Funny thing, I'll probably have another video out here shortly where I talked to Clay about his inclusion of that card. I'm not gonna spoil it now, but, definitely an interesting story, and it has a lot to do with sticky note seals that we
Uh,
mentioned earlier.
I've got that story also already spoiled by Pandy.
Exactly. So, um, for those of you who don't know the story, I'll have a video out here this Wednesday that you'll be able to watch it yourself and be clued into all the inside jokes. But in the meantime, we do see the one for O going there for Clay on the Sigismar, getting hitting him with that Ebenezer Scrooge that all Sigismar players should be including in their deck list at this point. Just great 3-3-3 stats. Your opponent plays Baba Yaga. Guess what? You have an Ebenezer Scrooge to go over the top of them. That's right.
Yeah, or place a 3/3 Chiron, just overstat that.
Easy. But we do see a unique Ortis Cadets. It's a new add to his deck list where if you play it, if you control a token, go ahead and draw a card, and then it's a token generator to the companion side.
Yeah, that's very insane. One of my teammates, Keelan, had a foundry mechanic that was also drawing, but it only went true when the card returned from your expedition to your reserve. But this one on play, drawing an extra card on a token generator, seems very powerful.
Yeah, Clay decides to go for a play here that allows them to get the single advance and not block the Basira on the hero by playing the Ebenezer Scrooge, and instead opting to sleep their attorney and get another draw past the one that they got from their Ortis Cadets unique.
The draw from their attorney they would have gotten anyway, but this way it sticks around for the next turn.
Exactly. So they'll have more stats out. They don't get the block, but they are still ahead, which you can't complain about when you are Sigismar. And now the only thing they'll have to worry about is a potential exhaust or sabotage play hitting that cadets that they have in reserve.
Yeah, I to me a lot of the sabotage tools got feel a lot worse in set 2. I'm not sure why, but it's just you have to commit all the sabotage cards don't feel really cost efficient. The sabotage is definitely a strong effect, but it doesn't oftentimes feel like it's very good to play in a turn, but just because you're losing a lot of pressure on stats.
Yeah, definitely. We do see that Monolith Ortis Bastion come out for the Sigismar player, making sense why they wanted additional stats out on the board with the attorney. Unfortunately, they'll still get the draw from the attorney because of the Mighty Jin play going over the top, but still wouldn't be enough stats to prevent an advance for the Basira on the hero side, or at least advance on their own. This is how it worked out with being able to play that 2 cost red and leaving 3 mana open for the Mighty Jin play. But either way, only down 1, feeling pretty good with a monolith out and a token generator in play in order to just put a lot of statted up tokens on the board.
Yeah, and I think I've got all the both deck lists now, so
Mm,
if you wanted to, I can share them with you.
yeah, definitely. We can pull it up to the side here.
Always takes a while.
But yeah, good spot for Clay to be in at the moment. We do see that a Clute that has been a must add for Basira players pop up. Will only get the one exhaust based off of its initial ability. So Basira holding on to the ability to exhaust again, potentially, if we see a spell show up. But instead, we'll see the common version of the Ortis Spy pop up to sabotage the Chiron and potentially stop a trigger for a boost that can be hit by the Basira.
And I'm looking at the Basira uniques right now, and they've got one navigator that is just there for drawing a card, but they also are playing two Osmos that draw twice when they're played. When they're at dusk, they're drawing once, and then when they're going to reserve from the expedition zone, they are drawing as well. So it's basically when you're playing it from hand, it's a draw two, and from reserve most of the time, it's a draw one. So that are very cool Osmos.
Yeah, we do see a Blade Dancer come out for the Basira in order and activate its ability in order to get an advance. They will be even on the board though, as the Sigismar is able to get enough stats on both sides to get a double advance, especially with that monolith available. So, still looking pretty good here for the Sigismar. We may be looking at a double exhaust play here from the Occlute from reserve, but that would use a lot of mana and leave them open potentially for the Sigismar to just use the large amount of cards that they have in their hand.
Yeah, I think now going all out for the Sigisma and overloading your reserve probably also isn't really good for them since they're not on game point yet, and uh, m- that would make their next turns much harder since they're also already down on mana. And next to the Aklut, the Basira can still play other cards, so it's still a very resource intense turn for the Sigisma.
Yep. We do see that a Clute come out immediately, and we will see the Basira trigger to go ahead and give a double boost, so they will not be able to utilize either card in the reserve as they will be exhausted. So we will get to the point of what you're mentioning here, where they're going to have to use all their resources in hand, and at the end of the day, lose some stuff with having an overloaded reserve. But we'll have to see if that will be enough for the Basira player to prevent the Sigismar from getting a little too close with having a lot of cards in hand and still having that Monolith Ortis Bastion out. And we will see another unique card coming out for the Sigismar. It is another token generator, also a one cost, and also pretty cool because it has a 101 stat line. A lot of the times with these token generators, they only have one stat or zero stats.
Yeah, and together with the Bastion, it's even bigger, and that's a very strong one.
Yeah.
Also, I'm a bit surprised to see that the Basira is playing a Blade Dancer. I think it's a good card just because it gives a boost for 1 mana for to trigger your Basira ability, but it really feels bad to play from the reserve since it's mostly understated for when you're not getting the second Basira boost on it, and it really makes your opening turns really weird to play with a 3 mana card in your reserve.
Yeah, doesn't feel the best, and plus it's one of those things where can you find the room a lot of the times to make it a rare? I'm not sure. I haven't played around with Basira as much as it pertains to Bravos Heroes. I've been more of a Kojo and Itsadi main a little bit. But yeah, like you mentioned, it doesn't feel great. They're leaving themselves 3 mana here open to potentially play into it if they want to, or something in their hand. So not a bad situation. But at this point, it's going to come down to the Sigismar player and Clay to decide what they're going to play from their hand. How much do they want to overload their reserve in order to either potentially double advance or maybe just take a single advance?
Yeah, and still expect there to be removal spells available to the Sigismar with 4 cards in hand, and I believe we haven't seen any removal spells. So yeah, but I think the last times oh, oh, it's good to have the deck list. Yeah, Claudius is playing 6 removal spells in total. 1 common tiny gel and 2 rare ones, and then the usual teamwork trainings.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that common tiny jail. It must be just from a perspective of they didn't have the rare slots for the third rare, I'd have to imagine. But we do see a little bit of interaction happening here with the Sandman hitting his own unique in order to prevent the overloading as much as possible there and still putting a good amount of stats on the board. But we do see a little bunny rabbit come out to get some more boosting happening.
I think the Basilius here still needs to have anything something in hand, just because the Sigismund playing 1 card on hero side would mean they are currently winning getting a double expedition since the token generators is just putting more stats on the companion side, so they would still advance there. And any
Yeah,
card on hero side would just block out the stats from the Tiny Jin currently.
Yeah, still some options with 2 mana. I think it was a good play playing that 1 cost, rabbit out in order to force another play from the Sigismar player to put some more cards in the reserve, as you mentioned earlier, to make them utilize those resources. We do see another card draw, though, with that Baba Yaga, so not going too far down in resources, and they end up not having a play at all. I was potentially looking at a rare mana eruption there that could have been played, but instead we do see the double advance from the Sigismar and not looking ideal for the Basira player at the moment.
I was thinking more about an intimidation, but looking at the deck lists, the Basira is only running common mana eruptions, so
Mm.
there was no removal that could have stopped the Sigismund here at all.
Yeah, I hadn't looked up when I was checking the deck list, but yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, that is the options there with the Bravos. There is a lot of 2 cost removal on their side between the intimidation and potential for rare mana eruption that you always have to be aware of. It's not only the Ordis heroes that have 2 cost removal. Okay, so there's other heroes that have it too, but just not as common. Either way, um, we'll see what they can do here. They are down on the tumult, and they do have to deal with that statted up unique of the Ordis Trooper that's going to be producing some tokens that will get boosted themselves because of the monolith. So, like I mentioned, not looking ideal here for the Basira player, but we'll see what they have left.
And I think this is a very tough spot. Just the starting stats of this token generators, and yeah, it seems really unwinnable. And the Basira player thinks so as well, and just passes. And yeah, that's the game.
Again, Sigismar takes it. We didn't see the upset victory, but either way, a good game up until going back and forth up until that last day there where Cladius was able to eke out the 2-0 and then eventually take the game on the following day. Still a good start to round 2 of the Swiss, as we'll go back here and take a look what we have for the rest of this round for everyone. We'll switch back. Once again, want to thank everyone that has joined us thus far. This is the Altered Weekly Online League, also known as AWOL, Season 2, Monday, weekly number 6. We have hit the cap of the players once again at 128 players, and we are currently in round 2 of the Swiss. See what we got going here. Plenty of games left. We can take a look at just about anything. Um, uh, if you don't have a preference, I'll just click one at random, but we'll have to see.
Sh- Sure, go ahead and choose a random one.
Random one. Bum. I'm scrolling. Table 50. Why not? 43%.
Okay.
Let's do it. Oh, and what do you know? I heard you guys like meta gameplay. It's a
Mm.
double Afanis setup.
Yeah, and we already see a spindle harvester in the reserve for the top of Fanas. That says when I leave the expedition zone, if I have one or more boosts return, you may return a card other than me from your reserve to your hand. And it gains anchored from reserve as well.
Yep. So it's not one of the at dusk setups that we have seen before that seem to be a little bit more popular for Faunus players. It is instead one of the when I leave the expedition zones that we have seen being used, including by one of your teammates on AQZ in the Keylon guy. But yeah, it's interesting. You got to play with what you have. Maybe this person doesn't necessarily have 3 at Duskers. This one definitely is not bad, especially since you can return any card and it's not just a spell.
And I think also for spindle harvesters, the thing that I'm mostly looking for nowadays is just the cost, and having 1/1 spindles is just so absurdly good just because they're generating value and they are so inefficient to remove. And yeah,
Yeah.
that just makes them so much better than the 2 cost.
Shout out to Tiny Jail, making it a little bit more efficient these days.
Yeah.
But we do have a fairly even situation here. Top Sigismar is currently behind on the tumult, and one less card available to them at the moment, depending on if we get a mana here, and we do. So it does look like the top Sigismar decided not to mana here that day. or at least at
We're
some
in
point.
an Afanas mirror, not Sigismar mirror.
Why am I keep on saying Sigismar? I'm
I'm
just I got
I'm
Sigismar on the brain. It's okay. Sigismar, Afanis, they're all meta. Who cares? Either way,
yeah,
Afanis mirror matchup. We do see that Spindle Harvester being played from the reserve, and we'll see what they can do with it.
yeah, and who maybe the bottom Afanas now I'm also starting with the Sigisma is maybe lacking a bit in characters. Having two cards in hand, and also the top Afanas has the same problem now with having limited cards and maybe not having enough characters in hand. But we do see the Tooth Fairy, so they get to sabotage one card of their choosing. But mm, currently, neither of these cards looks very promising to sabotage, so they just go for the well, I still got this account on German. I don't know the Leiterfan is the card's
There
name.
you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I was gonna say it for you, but I was letting you do it. But I figured it was
Hmm.
a change there. But yeah, no, it makes sense to hit the sleight of hand, preventing the option to pick up that off you go, or even the helping hand if they wanted to. But should be interesting to see what that bottom sig is. Not Afanis, not Sigismar, bottom Afanis. Is going to play here. Only 2 cards in hand to potentially counter here of the sabotage, and we will see a unique Muna Caregiver that at dusk, if I have 2 or more boosts, you may return a card other than me from your reserve to your hand. Who needs Spindle Harvesters when you have Muna Caregivers? Probably because they can't anchor themselves, but either way, not a bad card.
Yeah, and a different character that on for this for a unique choice.
Yep, still able to do some card return, which is what Afanis is looking for. I said it right that time. But we will have to see what the top Afanis has available to them in order to counter that setup. And we'll just go ahead and see that rare Baba Yaga come out, get some card draw, and potentially just take the companion side.
Yeah, and interesting to just choose to go for the trade of expeditions when being behind. But I think just playing up with Baba Yaga, you say, well, I can't play any more cards this turn, and this is the least likely that you'll just advance one for nothing. Since I believe that well, not quite just playing the off you go on the Tooth Fairy wouldn't have been enough to block out that Baba Yaga on the hero side, but yeah, this just says, well, the bottom Afanas can go ahead and try to get as much card advantage now as they want, since they're safe to get the uh, since they are safe to get at least a single expedition, but maybe they still have a character in hand to potentially double advance here.
Yep, definitely could figure out something here, but it seems like they oh, nope, they're throwing out a rare Ortis carrier.
Hmm.
Now
That's an
that is
interesting thought.
something I have not expected to see. Of all the cards that were in Anafanis's hand, that was not one of them that I expected to be played, but realistically, not a bad play. You
Yeah, just
don't lose any tempo and you still get the advance.
yeah, and now you're still you're very reliant on drawing useful cards next turn, and you likely can't mana, and then you're even in mana at least with the opponent, since they're probably manaing this turn. And yeah, you're just a character ahead on board.
Yeah, I think the
It's
only
just a
other
good card.
option yeah, the only other option they could have done was to play the helping hand or something from reserve in order to get those boosts on the Muna Caregiver and activate the At Dusk effect, instead of playing the Ortis Carrier, but it seems like they prioritized the permanent instead, and we're fine just getting rid of that off you go and bringing it to the discard pile.
Yeah. Just to shout out a card that would have been better in that spot, is Spindle Harvester, just a two mana card that would have been anchored and would have even been better stats than the recruit, and you would have still gotten to play your helping hand to return the off you go. But yeah, choosing the oddest carrot to get value across the entire game instead of only this one turn here, um, is a choice you can definitely make in your Havana deck, but I'm not convinced it's the most common choice that we see.
Definitely, especially in a rare slot. I don't know how often I'm putting an Ortis Carrier out there. Either
Yeah.
way, we do see another unique coming out for the bottom of Faunus and the Lady of the Lake. When I leave the expedition zone, if I have one or more boosts, draw a card. So just some more card advantage coming out here for the uniques of this bottom of Faunus.
Yes, another card that requires boosts, and currently the bottom Afanas requires to have 3 boosts on their characters to activate their effects, and I'm not sure they're able to do it. It has to be another 1 cost spell in hand, and then they would, of course, get the full value out of their cards, but and yeah, it actually is the magical training.
Yep. That is that
So
one cost that they were looking for, and they will also be able to utilize that helping hand potentially if they want to. As we did see the Moth to a Flame coming out for the top of Faunus, but instead, probably going to hit one of these uniques here with that off you go to prevent having both of those boosts help out with card advantage.
yeah, and I think that's just this boost from last turn was just based on the wrong character. I think it was still relatively there was still a chance for the top offenders to have off you go, and just putting that one boost already on your Lady of the Lake just to draw in case of a potential off you go would have been quite a bit better. But yeah, missing out on the draw, still getting the 1-for-1 if you replay your Lady of the Lake. And maybe you just get lucky and draw into your small step anyway.
And your opponent won't, kind of thing. But instead, they will throw out the helping hand instead and put all the boosts on their token. So they will not get the advantage of the Muna caregiver, instead opting for the 1-for-1 and keeping the Lady of the Lake in the reserve.
Yeah, and on the next turn, the Lady of the Lake on the companion side is still very good. Still, they moved into a water region, so the Lady of the Lake still has the stats you need, and your opponent is on a single water expedition, so it's the perfect stats currently.
Yep, only 2 costs as well, so it'll work out quite well once they are able to play it on the companion side, assuming it does not get sabotaged. But we'll have to wait to see if that is the case. They will get some more value from that Ortis carrier that all of Faunus players should be putting in their deck lists at this point. I mean,
Yeah,
you
agree.
you you don't need rare magical trainings or rare Category and Mage Dancers. Just put the carrier in there. Not that it matters because we see a small step giant.
Yeah.
And congratulations to the bottom of Faunus there in silver JO. And we'll head back. I think we probably have some time for some more games to show everyone. Thank you for joining thus far. We are in Swiss round two still. And a lot of the games are finishing up at this point. But still some other games running. I'll scroll through here. Looks like we have three left. Um, Why not join table 7? That's the first one, has the most
Well,
percentage left. Switch over here shortly. Say hello to a Sigismar mirror matchup that I am saying correctly for sure
and
now.
both players opting to play the common version of the Audis Trooper. That's a choice you don't see too often, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I've actually seen it be a little bit more common, I think, with the advent of utilizing some more rares for yourself instead of the trooper. And it looks like one of the players just decided to cancel out of the game here, and
Interesting.
the other one will take the win.
Not sure how that game got cancelled. Is it because the round finished,
Lost the
or
game.
did they
Oh,
just
it said they were out of time. Was that
so
did we
one
hit
of
the
the
limit?
players pressed the I think we haven't reached the limit yet, but the opponent just might have timed them out. I'm not too sure.
Must have been that situation. That seems like the most likely because we are not done with round 2, so that had to have been the scenario of they got timed out, so feel free to utilize that for yourself as far as, BGA is concerned and making sure that you don't have to wait forever for folks. So, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna jump into table 15 then and see if we have anything else going on there.
Oh, we're in tiebreaker here. It's again a Sigismund into Athanas matchup. It seems like both of these heroes are often represented in these tournaments.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's almost like they're meta or something. Either way,
Yeah.
we do see another Ortis carrier pop out, this time along the lines for a Sigismar. Interesting to see that permanent show up for the Sigismar. Also not super popular at the moment, but definitely doing some work for them at the moment to get another 1/1/1 stat out and basically supplement that Kokoba in the reserve.
I have to admit, I've in my Sigismund list, I've played the last time. I've also been playing Audis Carrier, but my thought process was more like I don't really like playing the other permanents, and I'm not playing Foundry mechanics to support playing your permanents cheaper. So I have a permanent requirement on one of my very powerful uniques, and since I want to use that effect, I have to play permanents, and I think the carrier is losing me the least tempo, and that's why I'm running carriers in my deck.
Yeah, interestingly enough, we do see the Kokoba played for the top Sigismar without having 3 other characters out. I don't know if that was a misclick or something, but, they definitely did it, so they will not get the boost on the Kokoba, and instead will have to play the Baba Yaga and see how things set up here. We do get that Beauty Sleep from the Aphanis, and only 1 card left in hand. 1 cost play for the Sigismar. Probably gonna see that Legat come out for more stats, or maybe some removal in hand, but we'll have to wait to see what the Aphanis does first.
Yeah, maybe the Kokoba was just played for to not give as much value for a Off You Go or Beauty Sleep, but yeah, I think that doesn't really make a difference because it would have otherwise just been Beauty Slept, and yeah, so
Yeah. Interesting what you mentioned about as far as, like, a permanent unique and using the carrier. Season 1, I was messing around with the idea of using, the Brass Bug Hub, in the rare version because it was only 2 costs with a Sigismar, and being able to produce those Brass Bug tokens. Um, to have a permanent or a landmark requirement that I was trying to do. That token generator that I mentioned that was 1 cost, it had a landmark requirement, but, it looks like the Faunus. Oh, it was abandoned.
yeah, this time it actually reached the 30-minute mark, and I think it was just over at on 30 minutes.
That's
Very
unfortunate.
unfortunate
Yeah.
that BGA works like that, and we never know beforehand if it exactly stops at 30 minutes or 35 minutes. And I think for the earlier rounds it stops at 30 minutes, but for later rounds it stops at 35 minutes. I'm not still not sure how it really works, but yeah, that's just from
The ever
from
elusive BGA and the rules of BGA always throwing
yeah.
out curveballs to everyone. Definitely
And
looked like the Afanis could have taken that game, but in this scenario, they in fact do not.
I don't
And
understand French, but both of the players chatting with each other, so maybe both of them were surprised about of the abandoning of the game. But yeah, we're definitely going into round 3 now.
yep, round 3 of the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 6. We got some fun stuff in the chat. Want to thank everyone that has joined us thus far. Um, Painful script indeed for that Afanis player, but we'll take a look to see what we have available here in the 3rd round of the Swiss and
Gladius
potentially.
gets to beat up a second team member now.
We won't watch that this time around. We'll see
Yeah.
what's going around later on and get the, future rounds for these other players potentially and catch some other folks that may have not been on stream before, and we can get them on stream potentially here. Why not? We have a AQZ member that hasn't shown up lately. The one that you mentioned earlier that is joining in table 17 with Void.
Yeah. Well, I'm expecting a Sigismar now. Yeah, Sigismar against Fen. So interesting matchup. I think it's just because it's Sigismar, it's still Sigismar favored.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, the Fen has some nice early tools to just maybe cheese a game if there's no removal with early. I think in a lot of matchups, the Aloe Vera from Fen is very easily removable, but in a Sigismar matchup, they have to have exactly 2 cards on day 2 to be able to actually remove the Aloe. But if they have it, the game is pretty much over for the Fen. But yeah, I think into Sigismar, it's maybe worth the risk just to play day 2 Aloe Vera.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Finn here in day 1, they didn't have much to work with. The only time you get to choose the cards that go into your hand a lot of the time as a Finn player, and all they were able to do is play the Magping and not able to get an advance out of it and giving out a double advance for the Sigismar player here on the top.
Yeah, so nice early advantage, and Magpeng, it's a rare version, so you're sacrificing other rare slots in your deck just to get one more boost on your Magpeng, and on day 2, you're not even have your Magpeng activated unless you're maybe playing an Esmeralda from hand, so you get the 2 cards requirement for your Magpeng, but currently it's still just 2 mana 2/2/2 from your reserve, and they also resupplied the winter outfits, so we're likely seeing a lot of spiking characters from the fan side, so they get the most actual stats out of their characters.
Yeah, you have to feel like there is a reason why they played that earlier on, unless they just got a horrible 6 card draw initially on the first day there, and that they have something in hand at the moment that they can utilize in order to get the boosts on the Magping, but maybe not. And we may be seeing another good setup here for the Sigismar player here to take another advance and get an additional draw while they're at it here with the Baba Yaga.
Yeah, and just playing the Baba Yaga into the forest expedition feels very nice, and yeah, the 10 players is already the early pass early on in the game, just passing your turns with playing 1 cost cards feels very bad for fan because your all your cards that do things cost a lot, and it's very inefficient to play them early on.
We do see that Tanuki come out just for a sabotage, but with that play, that means we will have an overloaded Finn deck setup here. Um, and they'll have to choose what to get rid of, and they still give up the advance for the Sigismar, so they're still 2 down despite getting an additional advance themselves. They will have the ability to play that Magping for the 2 boosts here, but, assuming they don't get sabotage, but still not looking ideal at the moment with the Sigismar taking the early on advantage, which is what they probably were looking to do the entire time.
Yep, but this turn, so in the fence spot, you're feeling very uncomfortable. But I think with going to 5 mana and having your Magpeng to get 2 boosts, you're still in a fine position where you have tools. If your opponent doesn't have, if your opponent doesn't play properly, you still have nice tools to just take back expeditions this turn. But yeah, let's see how this is played out.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Sigismar players, instead of going to the other expedition with the Baba Yaga, playing on top of the hero expedition where their token is at, could potentially be indicating an idea of they're not feeling too comfortable with contesting that companion side. And with that in mind, the Finn player is just going to contest the hero side as well to force the Sigismar to either continue play on that hero side or take their best shot on the companion side, and they will with that Sandman play.
Yeah, and that Sandman just, oh. I would have thought that they're going after the Mechpeng, but they're just setting up for the next turn, and that Baba Yaga is looking very strong for the next expedition. And I'm not sure if the Fen can contest this hero side to go to not let the Sigismund advance at all. So the Fen is getting a double advance here for sure, but I think the Sigismund is still just getting the companion back at least.
Yeah, the only ideal play that I could think of would be another no, it can't be Tanuki as 'cause that's 3 costs, so maybe a Hathor, but I don't know if Finns are running Hathors these days, as far as the 330 stats, but we
I,
will see the winter outfits come out, so maybe they do have something that's gonna help them here.
yeah, I think Hathor is still run a decent amount on. Yeah, it's actually blocking, or the Serengar's doing that as well. Actually,
Yep, Sarengur, another good character for the 2 costs, that'll help them get the double advance and the block. So, at the very least, the Sigismar forced them to make that play, and they'll have to get rid of 1 card in the reserve in order to do it, and now we will be all even on the Tumult, but the Sigismar will have a stacked up hero side that is going to be hard to compete with.
yeah, and the fan also has to make decisions on what they discard. But yeah, I'd also argue that the Martingale probably right now is the worst card, since you currently probably want to just replay your winter outfits over and over again. And the Sarengar has, with the boosts and the drop from reserve, very good stat line currently. And there we also see the Hathor that was mentioned last turn,
Yeah.
but it's resupplied, and I think currently not getting a lot of value.
Yeah, there's not a lot of stuff that you want to return to your hand with that support ability between the Saringer and the winter outfits. So probably going to stay in the reserve and hopefully for the Finn they ran into a spell that they want to return, maybe like a magical training at some point. But in the meantime, I'm sure we will see the play of the winter outfits being utilized either for the Saringer or another card in hand to potentially take that companion side, or if they decide to try to contest that hero side, although there is a lot of stats waiting for them there.
Yeah, I think this day they're probably just trying to make sure they're winning on the companion expedition. And yeah, also Fen is just a small step deck, so there's always the potential of going even and just winning that way. But yeah, there's also other tools like we haven't seen the stall tools from Fen yet, with a bunch of a cappella trainings to just see what your opponent is doing. And currently also a cappella training isn't too valuable because the Sigismund hasn't played cards from hand in a while, so it's not threatening to take card advantage off of the Sigismund. But we see another Mechpeng to increase the stats on the hero side to 8 in Forest. And they are still just able to play the winter outfits from hand to get up to 8/8 in water and mountain as well.
Yep. Interestingly enough, with that ability activation, that Magping will gain fleeting if you're not or if you're not aware of what it does. So we'll be losing a little bit as far as putting things to the reserve, but they're probably fine with it because they'll have the winter outfits go back and they won't have to make a decision of getting rid of the Hathor. But we do have that 2 cost danger zone from Sigismar popping up here, this time in the version of a teamwork training, rather, and getting rid of that mag ping, allowing for a double advance for themselves while only giving a single advance to the Finn player.
Yeah, and this is a okay spot for the Sigismund being up, but I think they're now down in total 2 cards in reserve. I think just because it's Fen and the hero ability is just card advantage, I think just based on the cards available to them, the Fen is still in an okay, if not good spot. So yeah,
Yep, still a lot to work with here for the Finn. They'll get their resupply here at noon once everyone decides on their mana. So a lot to work with. Been getting a lot of utility out of that winter outfits as well. a good card in rare where you can just keep on utilizing it over and over. Basically makes the downside of playing lyric characters that have 0 stats just not exist, and they do see a second one pop here for the resupply, potentially allowing for it to be used in both expeditions. I'm not sure if that's how they're gonna utilize it this time around, but we did see the Sigismar decide not to mana that time around.
Yeah, just being if you are playing on 3 cards for Sigismar, that feels very bad. It feels like you have way too little options available to them, and the hand just passed, having 4 cards in hand, and I'm not sure if it was a misclick or if they actually have no cards to play, but that seems very strange, and I did not expect that ending to the game.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what happened there. It kinda makes me want to replay the game to figure it out, but I'll do that separately so we can watch some other games for everyone
Yeah.
else, um, later on, but yeah, it's, interesting nonetheless. I'm actually putting that
Maybe
browser
there were
link.
a bunch of Cloth Cocoons and small steps in their hand, or
Maybe.
one costs. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I
That
am
seems
not
very
sure
odd.
as well, but, either way, Void on the Sigismar able to take the victory there. We
Yeah.
are in the round 3 of the Swiss for the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 6, a full up event at 128 players once again, so I wanna thank everyone that decided to come out for that, and especially all of you folks that are out there in the stream at the moment. We love you, keep on talking, we like answering questions or at least seeing you guys talk to each other. That's fine too. But let's take a look at what else we got going on here. Any games that you
Well,
want to take a look at
I'm
the moment?
looking at table 23, more than most gegen Schrumpf. I'm not too sure how that's pronounced, but I haven't seen more than I'm also not sure how that's pronounced, but as tournament organizer on the AWOL Discord, I'm not too sure on that.
And yeah, we got more than most. I'm just gonna call it most. Popping up here with the Itzadi play,
Oh, that's great.
hitting them with the Sakura brew and the Demeter that I think are pretty popular in its Saudi list these days, especially with that Eat Me energy bar available to utilize both of their effects in some way. But we do have two uniques out here for the Finn player at the bottom here with the Heimdall in the reserve that lets you switch target character from expedition, and you roll a die, draw a card, otherwise resupply, and then a one cost Esmeralda that if you have three or more basic statistics of 0, you can resupply. So
Yeah,
getting some value there.
yeah, and I think just finding creative ways for the fan player to make that Demeter lose their Eternal would have been nice to see, and I think just playing out the Heimdall on to Hero Expedition. Oh, it doesn't have any stats itself, so it's not winning on Hero's side.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about playing Heimdall to push the Demeter over to Companion side, so that they are advancing on that side, and afterwards the Demeter loses the Eternal, but that doesn't seem possible right now, and yes, still trying to contest with the Magpang.
And they're cost
Might
reducing,
be
which is the benefit of the Martingale, and throwing out the Hathor.
a yeah, so that's just game. Some nice plays from the fan.
All the lines with these Finn players throwing out cost reductions, changing things, especially utilizing that Persephone there, changing things to the forest terrain on the companion side there, able to get a double advance and take the game. So, quick little game there, but fun one to watch to see how the Finn is able to take it.
Yeah. That's interesting.
RIP
Yeah.
at Saudi players, unfortunately, but they're
Yeah,
Canadian.
sadly. But
Um,
an amazing hero to see on the tournament.
Yep, still in round 3 of the Swiss here. A lot of games still actively moving on here. Not a lot of drops yet, so happy to see everyone still being involved. And we can take a look at what we have. Do, 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 do. I'm
I just took
scroll.
a short peek at Neuro versus Gladys, and they're both on Sigismund Amar, so Yeah. We're
Gotcha.
not
Well,
missing much there.
we don't need to put everyone through that at the moment. Maybe later on, but we'll figure it out. Let's go to table 27. Um,
Sure.
just picking one at random at this point.
Jimmy
Switch it
Durbin is
over.
for sure a name I've read before.
And do that. And we do have another Finn player here versus a Trace.
Yeah. And also, this one is playing Muna Merchant to resupply. We've earlier seen a Muna Merchant that also is resupplying, but you're also additionally to that putting a card from your hand to reserve. And yeah, just I've learned that you're with your Ouroboros Bastion, you're not actually resupplying. You're just looking at the top two cards and put one of them in reserve, and that's not a resupply effect. And I've learned that the hard way with playing Varu myself, and the Ouroboros doesn't trigger your Quetzalcoatlus, and that made me very sad.
Yeah, it's a good way around it. I figured that out when I was playing Waru myself in season one, and people were messing with the Ouroboros Lyra Bastion a little bit, and I'm like, "Aw, boo." But,
Yeah,
it does have some downsides occasionally as well. It does get around the exhausted resupply, and your cards do not come in exhausted because it is not a resupply anymore. So, if you do have cards that do exhausted resupply, it does not exhaust your cards either way. But either way, we do have a Eat Me Energy bars in the out of faction rare for the Finn player to potentially use big characters like we see in that unique Shinlong in the reserve.
yeah, and the Shenlong is very big also. The at dusk ability from this Shenlong is very strong, just giving fleeting to each character of a target player. So that's a very strong Shenlong.
And we see rare Brassbug Hive come up. Not a card that I'm used to seeing on Traced, but it's going to be
Yeah.
enough there to give them the stats that they need in order to take the game.
And sadly, the fan doesn't have another character in hand, so they can contest that companion expedition anymore.
Yeah. Too bad, but still some unique cards to see being played, no pun intended, for that game for both players there. So glad we were able to jump in there. A lot of one off turns as we watch this Swiss round three, and we still have a good amount of games, I think, still being played. So we can jump into one of your choice now if you want.
Yeah, table 19 maybe at Ensor versus Altered Aces Mugus.
Sounds
I've
good.
know, I know at Ensor as it just and finished. I know
Just
at
finished.
Ensor as the Vanguard player, and his list was very good into my pen list that I played months back. And yeah, that's I've queued into ladder so often that I remembered his name and his list, and yeah, good to see that them show up in the tournaments.
Yep. Still some other folks out there. I don't know what else we want to take a look at here. Let's take a look at table 31. I see
Okay, sure.
a team name that I'm not entirely sure, and it
This
just ended as
also
well.
just ended, yeah.
Yep. So we'll go back again, back and forth, back and forth.
When I
Um,
you wanted to look at Mananka, right? Of in the not if I'm not mistaken, yes, it's also in the Stream Team channel. I'm not too sure if they are streaming in another language, maybe.
which table are we looking at?
You had mentioned 31 and Mananka, that
Yeah.
ones that's also in our Stream Team
Yep.
channel.
Haven't got them to be able to make it on yet, but you know.
Okay, yeah.
Either way, let's take a look. What else that we have here? Um, oh, we got Reno that's probably streaming from the Altered Aces channel at the moment, table 43.
Oh yeah, sure.
Switch over real quick, and we have a fun little Sigismar mirror matchup. But we do see a field reinforcements coming from Reno on the bottom Sigismar. Don't see that very often unless it's. I mean, I've used it a lot on a Gold Ring deck I messed around with, but not so much on Sigismar. But still a fun card, especially if you can utilize both effects.
Yeah. I've recently played against No Reno on the ladder, and he was on stream with the altered aces, and it was a Varro versus Aurak matchup, and I've watched the end of the game on the stream, and they were very confused of what I was doing on my Varro list, and it was a very funny game.
We do see a unique Frog Prince come out there, that you can discard a permanent if you pay one. So obviously not using that ability at the moment, but using the stats to double advance and take the game there.
Yeah, very nice way to win the game there, and it's a bit surprising to see a Sigisma passing on 5 mana with 1 card left in hand.
Yeah, maybe they just thought they didn't have that Reno was able to produce any of those stats, but obviously wrong in that situation. And we get another one turn, and we're done with the game here in the Swiss round three. So we'll keep on looking here to see if there's any other games left. It looks like there may be some. And why not? Let's just jump into the game that you're mentioning, another Sigismar mirror matchup in table one with a altered aces
Mm.
game between Neuro and Clay, deciding who can take it. Clay already has the monolith out as I switch to the game so everyone else can watch. And we have a unique for Neuro at the bottom there, allowing for a token generation once again. But this time it's in target expedition. That's always a good one.
Oh yeah, that's very good, especially on a 1/1. And yeah, this one does only have the 1 stat in forest, but just getting the target expedition makes it very strong already.
And we do have a monolith rune scribe in the reserve that is essentially a better version of a Sandman that you can play its effect from anywhere if you control a token. And when you are Sigismar, chances are you are controlling a token, and it has 2/2/3 stats as well. So quite a good monolith rune scribe unique to go along with it.
Yeah, and I think right now Neuro is forced to play their RuneScribe on to hero side and sleep something on companion expedition, but maybe they're thinking about a different play. Since I think there's a possibility for a 1 cost from hand, and that would that way you would still be going down 1, and I'm not sure if you wanna take the risk. So yeah.
So they decide to go to the companion expedition here, and we'll find out where the sleep target is going to to hit something, and they're going to sleep their own token.
Yeah,
So opting
and
for the one for one and setting up for the following turn to potentially try to 2-0 or at least prevent Clay on the top Sigismar from advancing. But with the one cost Foundry mechanic, uh, we will not even see another day. And
yeah.
calculated risk by Neuro to hope that Clay didn't have a one cost, but in this case, he did.
Yeah. I think there was potential that no that Clay also only had Rallying Call in hand, which wouldn't have been enough, but any 1 cost character, of course, in this position is enough to just get 2 boosts or 2 stats in Forest, which you need to advance, and yeah, that way Cladius just won this game.
Yeah, I didn't check out his Discord, so maybe Neuro was calculating based off of seeing a lot of troopers or other mechanics being played and thinking the likelihood of one of them being played again was not up there, but unfortunate for him. I think it may have been the correct line in the sense of setting themselves up for next turn and not putting themselves down, but either way, Clay had all that they needed in order to take that game,
Yeah.
and we are still in round 3 of the Swiss, actually. Um, just constantly picking the game that only has 1 turn left, and there's 2 games left. So flip a coin, 38 or 53.
Then let's go to 38.
38 it is. Let's switch to it real quick before it ends.
And another Sigisma, but this time against a Atzadi, and again Atzadi. And this time that they it seems they have managed to play a Sakuraru into the magic oh no, it's a magic slate, it's not Eat Me Energy Bar. Yeah, but currently the Atsari has a lot of mana left with 2 cards, and Sigismar still with 4 cards and much less mana available to them.
Yeah, that Tiny Gin probably not one of the cards that they wanted in their hand at this point, and we will see a unique Sandman come out here to pretty much, it seems like, put the nail in the coffin for the Itzadi, but we'll see what they decide to do. They decided to sleep that Mighty Gin to all but potentially confirm the companion side, depending on what the Itzadi has, and we'll see what is left here. It is an Eat Me energy bar, so it'll be a GG. Unfortunate for the Itzade. If only had some other cards in hand, they may have been able to pull out a fun little win there, or at least a tie with the Magic Slay. But
Yeah.
instead, Sigismar able to take that victory there. And once again, we are coming in on the last turn.
It's just how it is. And it's still the other game is still running.
Of course, we always pick the one that is not
Yeah.
the last one. Let's see if we can jump in that one real quick before things end. Am I? No, here it is. Table 53.
Oh,
Go to the
54 is
game.
also still running.
Okay, I just jumped in 53 because it's the first
Yeah,
one I
yeah,
saw.
for sure.
But field reinforcements being played here by the Afanis. Interestingly enough, I did see this being played by the Afanis in one of the recent events in France as well. It makes
Okay.
sense if, in the sense of like being able to boost up that token. Not quite as good, I guess, as Moth to a Flame, but I guess it makes sense in that capacity, especially if you happen to be behind as well in for whatever reasons to draw a card. But yeah, interesting card to being used for an Aphanis if you have an extra rare slot, I guess.
I think the biggest advantage a the field reinforcement gives you is when you play it on the first turn, but I just think the Baba Yaga is just a better card on
Mhm.
day one because you're getting similar stats, but you actually have your Baba Yaga available the next day over the field reinforcements. That's just fleeting and you get to play it once. And sure, you still have one more play you could do on turn one, but otherwise, I think Moth to a Flame is just better card since it's also just a common version over a rare slot.
Yeah, doesn't seem like it's going to matter too much here. Only one cost left here, one mana left rather for the Basira, and they're going to have to contest with another helping hand play, potentially boosting up that Ordis recruit in the companion side and taking this game. So they will see the pass, and we'll see another meta victory here with the Aphanis, who said, "Why not? I'll throw an off you go instead of that helping hand."
Yeah,
Give it at least they gave the Basira a draw for the unique Lady of the Lake leaving the expedition, so
true,
little
true.
consolation set up there. So congrats to the Aphanis player. Unfortunate for Basira once again. Sad we couldn't see them take the victory, but nonetheless, that should be taking us pretty close to the end of round three. But knowing our luck, that one game will still be going. And in fact, it is. Let's see what we can get to it real quick. Table 54. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Switching over for everyone. We have an Orak versus an Akesha. Jesus.
And
Belt
14 mana, that's one of the the hostage Akasha lists actually. They played already one Gear and two celebration days. So and but they already drew through their deck. So they probably have the third celebration day either in hand or they had to mana it early on in the game. And this might still take a while.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, both players being fairly efficient with their time, still in the positive, but it will come into a factor here on who can play the quickest. And the Akesha has a unique Belasenka that lets you exhaust a target card in reserve. And from hand, if there are two or more exhausted cards, you can discard a target permanent. So, still a fun card. And we'll just see both players just play as fast as possible to potentially take this victory by time, depending
Yeah.
on what we get to here.
And currently, the Arak that's just playing as fast as possible is winning on time, and yeah, it seems like the plan is working out. But and there we see a rare Winter Nova for the Arak. A rarely seen card, but it's in this spot. It's doing something. I don't know if it's doing enough, but interesting to see it nonetheless.
Yep, plenty of mana left though for the Akesha, so we definitely could be seeing a celebration day being played here from what they have in their hand. But we'll also but luckily for the Akesha, the Orak does not get to the 5 entertain performance counters rather in order to get a free play here on the next day.
Yeah, and
So we'll see.
from having hostage Akasha knowledge myself, this for sure isn't the best spot for Akasha that you'd want to. At this point of the game with 40 mana, you pretty much want to have your entire deck in your hand, and well, we see that's not the case. They just have the game was ended on time actually, and here we're still on the 30-minute mark. So yeah, the Akesha isn't managed to play faster than their opponent and just lose on time. And I think that's an actual loss for the Akesha, because you're saying either I win because I'm playing fast, or I'm winning because I get to a small step, and neither was the was possible here. And yeah, so that's just misplaying probably on your deck.
If you're gonna play the Akesha, you better learn to play quick on what you wanna play
Yeah,
so that way you could beat out your opponent for it. But either way, that will be the end of round 3 of the Swiss finally, as we watched like 7 or 8 games at that point with 1 turn apiece. But either way, we are into round 4 of the Swiss. Thank you once again for everyone that has joined us thus far. This is the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 6. I am in fact Blue. Find me on Blue Oak TV on YouTube. I will have subscribers. I'll give you candy. And joining me today is Runefolk. Say hi,
hello, hello.
and
Yeah,
we will be
you
getting
can
into another game. What?
you can in theory you could find me on Twitch on I'm Runefolk, or but better on the AQZ Thursdays, when we're doing our AQZ championships.
Yep. And good to join and check out those AQZ folks. They got a lot of stuff going on as well. Was lucky enough to get to talk to a few of them at some point, and I'll maybe be releasing a video about it. Who knows? Either
Yeah.
way, we're here in round 4. And speaking of hostage Akesha, do we want to get into one here or
Do you
or
have one
no?
in mind, or
No, I'm just kidding. Let's just go with newbie boy to show like what a non-hostage Akesha looks like here on table
yeah?
2.
And for newbie boy, we have a lot of he has a lot of records on 39 cuts with his deck, and I haven't seen him change it up too much. So maybe he's still on the same old Akasha list.
Potentially, we do see a Faunus being played here from Astora, and it looks like we just had a Baba Yaga trade in the previous day as we go into day 2 here.
And for me, seeing an Akasha that's trading expeditions with Baba Yaga just feels wrong. You have to block your opponent on the expedition. That's the whole reason to play
Like
Akasha.
like, I don't I don't I
But
don't
of
I don't wanna
course,
advance early, I just wanna stop.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, of course, Newbie Boy isn't on my type of playstyle, so the early trading makes a lot of sense. And yeah.
We'll go ahead and knock out that Baba Yaga played from reserve. Still have the ability to play their own from reserve at this point that they probably feel like can outstat whatever they play here. And we do see a rare Blade Dancer pop up. But with still 1 mana left for the bottom of Faunus, there's definitely some boosting that can be happening here.
Yeah, and now's the question, if the Akesha is taking the risk. I think that there's the likelihood of there being a there are basically 2 1-cost spells that would win the expedition for the Afanas, and only magical training would lose you the expedition. and now the Akasha has to make the decision if it's worth to take the risk or if they don't.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, even if they get beauty slept, they're still looking okay for the next turn, and they only lose one expedition. And like you mentioned with the magical training, at the end of the day, that's just a lock as far as no one advancing. And realistically, the helping hand, you might force them to use the helping hand and put it in reserve. So I don't know. I mean, I don't play a lot of this matchup as far as Akesh is concerned, but I almost would have wanted to make them use a spell here and challenge them on that companion side with those 3/1 cost spells that could have been played.
I think for that lane, it's also important to mention that the Akasha went first. So if they're going even each day, and that way the if both are even on the final day, the Akasha would have the small step advantage to play it first, and maybe that's just also another reason that they decide to not make the Afanas use resources and just for, keep trading and just have that small step advantage if they manage to go for one each day.
Yeah, we did see that early on in the first round of the Swiss with, the Kesha being played there. They didn't end up using a small step in that first round at least, but, they still ended up taking the victory, I believe. So, either way, we'll see how it turns out as we have this Izmir matchup going here, and we'll have identical card advantage at this point, except for it looks like Afanis will have 1 card after this mana here, but, either way, not too bad. Even on the board, we'll see what the Akesha decides to do, and in fact, it is. I didn't even see the mana being set up here. Gotta pay attention to the yellow highlighting happening. At least I am not calling Afanis Sigismar anymore.
Yeah, that's great.
Indeed. You all knew what I was talking about either way, but we do see the rare coming out of the Tooth Fairy to hit that Blade Dancer. Doesn't want to see it being played from the reserve, but we'll have to deal with that Mage Dancer in the common version for the Avanis.
And here we see why you're playing Akasha. You just need that, want that after you to see where your opponent's committing. And pretty much as soon as the Afanas plays another card after this Mage Dancer, they're basically showing what they're planning to do for the rest of the turn. And now they are most likely not able to contest on the hero side anymore because they would have to play a one cost character plus a one cost spell. And this way, the Akasha can just basically freely play out onto the hero side and not care or not expect the Afanas to trade. And this right now is a thing I've heard Keelan talk about, that he sees a lot of Afanas players that are just drawing cards with magical training for the sake of drawing cards and not using it efficiently to also get a boost on a character, but using it from reserve makes makes it a bit harder to use it efficiently because you it just its cost is double basically than when you're playing it from hand. And so just getting the draw and maybe finding another one cost spell from hand might be just the more efficient play. I'm not too experienced with Afanas and that
Yeah,
so yeah.
definitely. We do see that unique Ysmir Stargazer being played in order to return a card, and we will see a Spycraft as well as a Blizzard being resupplied for the bottom of Faunus. So definitely not some cards that we are typically seeing a lot of the times for an Afanis player. Usually something that is that high cost. They're probably not playing too often, but fun to see overall. But we will see an off you go immediately hit that mage dancer from reserve. So it'll just be dependent at this point what the bottom of Faunus has left for characters, and they have another blade dancer.
Yeah, and now you would expect there to be more boosts on that Blade Dancer, so Newbie Boy decides to make sure he's winning on the hero side again, and there is only off you go available to Fanas to go 1 for 1, 1 for 0 this turn, but they don't have it, so we're trading even further. And by now, I think the Akasha's actually up 1 card in hand, And this Blizzard is also very stuck for the Afonas in reserve and doesn't seem to be playable the next couple of turns since the Akasha just plays too slow for this Blizzard to ever be really useful. And yeah,
Yeah, the Newbie Boys Flamel here is quite a good one. I remember seeing it at some point as far as the double return. Feels really good for only 3 costs, especially once you've been loading up your reserve with some spells or even cards that you need returned set up here. And it's solid stats at 233. So an overall efficient play once you're able to play it. But we will see another sabotage hitting the other blade dancer that was the first one was also sabotage, but instead this will force the Aphanis to play out a moth to a flame to get some type of character on the board.
also, Blade Dancer isn't a card that's you frequently run in Afanas decks, but one player that's making it work currently for themselves is W2 with also playing the, I think, Lyra Icebound out of faction that's getting tokens when you're playing a zero statistic character in an expedition where it doesn't have any stats.
Mhm.
So his cards that are getting tokens for his best for his Icebound are just his Blade Dancers and his Spindle Harvester uniques.
And we'll see that Flamel being activated again to return the off you go once again. And we are running into a situation for the bottom of Faunus where it seems that they just didn't have no characters to be able to be played. And that's going to put Nui Boy in a pretty good situation, getting the advantage on the tumult and being one advance away from setting up from a small step giant leap victory if they so choose. And we do see that Blizzard just sitting in the reserve for the Aphanis player, like you mentioned. It doesn't feel too good at this point. I imagine they have it in there as a bit of a surprise occasionally against some deck lists, but at this point, not looking too hot.
I've recently got destroyed by a Akasha player that ran 3 of Blizzard and actually played all 3 Blizzards in the same turn, and my e-stocks were very sad.
Just when you think that you can surprise them with the Isatak and haha, you can't advance, the Blizzard
It
comes out. But
it wasn't too surprising that the easy dogs were there for a while.
okay.
Otherwise, the Akasha wouldn't have been able to play three three Blizzards in the same turn. You still need 15 mana for that. So it was a long game, and the easy dogs have been there for a while.
Oh, it was
That
on the
still
same
made me very
turn?
sad. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you just played it over the course of the game, but he played
No,
3
it
blizzards in
was
the same turn.
three
Wow.
Blizzards in the same turn.
Why do you have 3 blizzards in your hand?
Because they had their entire deck in their hand just like me.
Okay, that makes sense. We do see a unique monolith legat coming out here for the bottom of Faunus when my expedition fails to move forward after rest sabotage, and then from hand you may pay 1 if you do resupply. So looks like solid card, nothing crazy at least, but gives you something, especially if you don't have anything crazy in the unique department, which not everyone has those spindle harvesters that the Faunus players like to have. But
Yeah.
either way, the Akesha with Newbie Boy still looking quite good here with 5 mana left, and we'll see what they have left.
Yeah, and also probably still has. I think Newbie Boy is playing Beauty Sleep, so this is if they do have the Beauty Sleep, this is just winning for Akasha right now. But maybe they don't, and we'll see another day. But
Yep, we
with
definitely know they still have that off you go that they've been returning constantly, and there is now the question is, do they have some other removal to take care of that Legat unique and get that 2-0 that you're talking about? Or if we're just going to the next day and potentially seeing a small step.
and the Pomola together with another Studious Disciple is also just enough stats to win this day already.
See,
Some very nice
Ysmir isn't
plays.
all about removal and spells. Sometimes it's about characters.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a fun little matchup to watch. Glad we got to check out Newbie Boy on that Akesha. It's definitely not something that is super common in today's meta, so we got to be treated a little bit there for all the folks in the chat. Once again, we still want to thank you though for joining. Feel free to type in the chat how much you love my sunglasses or how much you love Altered. Either way, it's fine. But we are in the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 6. We are, in fact, in the Swiss round 4. We'll be getting into round 5 and 6 here shortly once we finish out this round and get to some undefeated folks eventually. But it does look like we're still waiting. We do have two folks that are undefeated at the moment as we wait for the others to finish up. Any games that you want to check out, or should I just do the random draw before we get into these final two rounds?
I think table 36 with a BB Sigismar with this AA it's a funny team matchup because AA versus BB. I'm not sure what team BB is for, but maybe on the spreadsheet from Kilon Guy, there's a note on BB, but it doesn't seem like that. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not too sure what team that is, but it was just funny to me to see the BB versus AA.
yeah, AA versus BB here. I had noticed the BB before, but wasn't quite sure what it was. We are getting GGs in the chat here. It seems like we'll get a double advance from the Linda way and maybe into a small step potentially.
Yeah,
Um,
probably.
and either
Oh,
way, yeah,
we see a nice unique from the fan that gives fleeting to all characters at dusk, but yeah, against the small step and especially against the tokens, it's not really doing anything.
yeah, that's one of the bad things here in the situation. You're probably not feeling too bad as a Finn player with the resources that you get typically and giving everything fleeting going into the next day, but then you realize, oh, I'm playing against a hero that has small step giant leap in their deck list and I could just be losing.
Yeah.
But we'll have to put the onus on the Keylon guy to find out what BB stands for and everything about that team. That is his official job for the stream team. I'm surprised we actually let him cast. But either way, he's probably recouping from the party that he went to last night with Freeloader over there in Switzerland. They go crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And I've heard
Um,
that they are planning to play a draft where a specific draft mode that sounded interesting. And Predator was asking for some advice on deck building.
nice. So he's going outside for trying to get some advice. That doesn't that you gotta stand on your own freeloader, huh? Anyway, either way. I guess that's what teams are for. We're in round 4 of the Swiss. We'll take a look to see what else that we have going on here for all of you lovely folks to watch with us. Kinda scrolling down a little bit to the bottom before we get into the last 2 rounds to see some other folks that may not have been able to check things out. Um, let's take a look at table 27. Why not?
Okay.
We will get this. Oh, nope, never mind. It ended. JK.
Oh, yeah.
The percentages on BGA are so deceptive sometimes, like, come on.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Let's bring out the legend showing Cracker 8 in table 23.
Okay.
Believe he is a Finn player, and it in fact is a Finn versus an Aphanis.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. But the Aphanos is already a double expedition ahead. So yeah. But this turn seems like the Ben is just getting the double expedition as well. So they are now again even. And with the setup, I believe right now the Fen might be a bit favored.
It
No,
depending.
the
It's
I think the Aphanas might actually be favored just because they're going first again. If
yeah.
this day is going for a 1-for-1.
Yeah, it depends on how this next day goes here. If they go 1 for 1 and Aphanis will have the first player token and potentially could small step into a victory. They also have a Moth available at 333 stats. And interestingly enough, we got to see a Joyride being played for the Aphanis that
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
that we do not get to see very often, but still a fun card for one cost and being able to boost some things if you decide to.
And right now also this Kerrigan Mage Dancer is a powerful tool available to the Avanas, but the Pen does have the answer for it in reserve with the Twinkle Twinkle. Yeah, the Avanas still has decent amount of characters with the Moth to Flame as well, and whatever they have in hand, of course.
Yeah, I think at this point it'll just be up to the Finn on what they have in their hand as well. They definitely can potentially counter the Aphanas if they want to with playing that acapella training if anything's played from hand. But at this point in the game, I have to imagine not too much caring about card advantage, especially if both heroes are running a small step giant leap that they can just win on the next day with if they go 1 for 1.
And also this Fen with the acapella training in reserve is just a nice stall tool to see a play from the Avanas that might otherwise not be able to counteract.
Indeed. And for all the folks out there that do not know, you can just play spells without targets occasionally if you want to wait things out a little bit. I have definitely seen some Lyra players go back to back with playing acapella trainings on absolutely nothing to each other just to stall each other both out. So we'll see how it turns out. We do have two mage dancers on the board for the Aphanis to
It's
boost some things up.
it's interesting to me that they decided to split the mage dances because I think one mage dancer getting slept is quite likely here, and I think a single mage dancer right here could outstat both the Ardoi and the Incurstor, but maybe they're scared of something in the head of the fan that we haven't seen. So yeah,
Yeah.
could still go either way, I think.
Yeah, still 2 cards in hand for both players, so we'll see how this turns out, and we will just see another Aloe being played, paying the extra mana here to keep it on the board and potentially have some more 2-cost interaction with that Twinkle Twinkle that you had mentioned. Um, but the Off You Go will hit that anchored Aloe that was just played, which is, not feeling too good for the Aphanis, but we'll see what is left.
Yeah, and I think if you'd expect there to be a small step in the hand of the Avanas, you're thinking about is yeah, the Twinkle Twinkle is just enough on the Mage Dancer. So if there is a small step in hand, this game is basically over right now. But the Avanas is still playing it out, so it could be there could just be something else in hand.
Yeah, they definitely could have another card in hand that'll help deal with the cards on the companion side. A lot available with 2 costs, but they in fact do not. It'll go to a 1 to 1. We may be going to a small step off and seeing who can take the victory. But either way, the Finn will have to decide what they want to get rid of here in the reserve, as the Aphanis still has 3 cards in hand.
Yeah. Also, with now picking up the magical training, the fan has some nice tools if neither player has the small step. But in this kind of matchups, I do always expect there to be a small step.
Yeah, especially with so few cards left in the decks of both players, it feels like they probably have one, and Aphanis is going to step off to victory over the Finn player, but still
Yeah.
a fun game that we got to watch there.
And I think the cards from the played from the right are always the cards that you had in your hand, that were just drawn. So it seems like they actually just drew into it.
Very nice. Always nice when you get that and you weren't just holding a huge brick in your hand the entire time. So,
Yeah.
congratulations to the Aphanis player. As we head on back and see what we have left here in round 4 of the Swiss of the Altered Weekly Online League, Monday Weekly number 6. Um, Kind of narrowing it down. Let me scroll all the
We have
way down
still
here.
table 1 running with Perny against Karnok.
Okay. What else do we got? I think we only have a few games left. So, um, I'm gonna go to table 43, I think,
Okay.
and see what else we got going.
Oh,
And
that
JK, it's
one's
over.
over.
Oh man, I'm getting too good at this. Either way, scrolling all the way to the bottom, table 53, we're going to that game, why not?
Sure.
Switching over, we have a Bravos matchup finally,
Oh,
Basira versus Itzadi. Always exciting to see Itzadi players duke things out here, and a
and yet
unique
Sadi being
trickster.
yet Sadi being 4 mana up in this matchup, there was either a lot of so there definitely was a lot of ramp. I'd also expect, well, no, there's just a Sun Wukong that's ramping you. Yeah, I think that's just the reason that Sadi is up 4 mana in this matchup.
Yep. The unique trickster just lets you draw a card for being played, so that's not a bad unique at all for 2 costs. And then from reserve, you can do the good old trickster stuff of rolling a die and getting some boosts. So that's still a pretty good trickster unique for the Basira, especially in a Bravos hero where you always want to try to find some card advantage that you may not have. Um, but yeah, they're statting up pretty high on that companion side that will allow a double advance at this moment for them and a single advance for the Itzadi. So we're going down to the wire here on this final day of this
Yeah, very
Bravos v
even.
Bravos matchup.
The Arcadia is up in mana, but the Basira is just much more mana available to them, much more cards available to them. So yeah,
Should be a
I'm,
fun
I'm
little
not.
game. Glad we got to
I'm
join it in.
I'm really not sure who's favored in this position, but I'd lean towards the playing a lot of cards over the playing big cards.
Yeah, I would have to agree, especially having available resources. I'm not sure what the Sierra has as far as removal available. It looks like they've used one rare mana eruption already, so they may have another. If they are running intimidations, probably not too good against something big like Shinlong, obviously, but it could work against things like that Haven Saringer or other low costs that the Itzadi may have in their hand, because believe it or not, Itzadis don't run everything over 6 costs. But we will just see. Ooh, getting
That's
hit with the occlute. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, that's a nice timing for the Aklut. Just hiding it in the hand for this turn maybe, or I think it came from the right, so it maybe just been drawn this turn. So yeah, very painful.
We'll see a unique Kappa come out. When I leave the expedition zone, you may put me in my owner's mana zone. Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if I like this. It's just the effect of a common
I
tiny gen, but on a better body.
yeah.
But yeah,
This using the Jin stuff with some stats actually has water stats this time around. But they're just gonna stack up on that hero side, potentially seeing the writing on the wall of not having very many resources and maybe just want to go to the arena tiebreaker versus the Basira. But the Basira is setting themselves up with that Arcolano milk. The question is are they going to play on that side, or are they fine to take things to the arena themselves? Which might not be a horrible situation, but we'll have to see.
I'm not sure if the Basira at this point is actually able to block. I think double Chiron would be blocking. I'm not sure if there are other things. Of course, also this Blade Dancer that was already buffed is currently just overstating everything that's played and seeing the mana eruption. I think the trade this turn is guaranteed.
Yep, we will see the mana eruption come out. Common mana eruptions for the Itzadi this time around. Nothing left for the Basir to play that can catch up to these stats, very likely. But they will just throw out another milk to set themselves up for the arena, which isn't a bad play if you think about it.
Yeah, and still just having much more cards available to them than the Azadi.
Indeed, they do. So they'll be setting themselves up for some stats here in the tiebreaker. Still some big characters up for the Itzadi in the reserve if they want to use them, but they'll probably only be able to use at least one because I have to imagine we'll probably see the Occlute being played to hit the other one that would be in the reserve.
Yeah, that's probably what's gonna happen. So yeah, just ramping your kappa right now to hopefully play both cards you draw next turn is probably what you're looking for here.
Yeah, as an Itzadi player, you're probably hoping now that you made it to the tiebreaker, you can hit something with gigantic.
Oh,
To hope,
just a K-bar now.
yeah, to hopefully get the statistics, but we'll see what happens. Unfortunately for the Itzadi, they will be going first here, so
And
the
they didn't
idea,
mana, so there's no potential Kaibara into Shenlong.
yeah, we'll see what happens. Gonna throw out the Shinlong, try to get as many stats out there before something gets exhausted,
Yeah,
and the
which we
Basira
do
just gonna,
immediately see.
yeah, Basira definitely just gonna take advantage of that double milk turn that does a body good, especially for little orca cows, and they get plenty of boosts, and then they exhaust everything else.
Now everything that's played from hand is just so insanely big with the double boost from the Akulana milk that was played last turn.
And it doesn't really matter what side they put it on at this point, so why not do it on the side where they can just get a lot of stats?
Yeah.
The question is does the Atsadi have something that's gigantic that can help them here? I doubt that they're running anything at this point that would be that. I mean, the only thing that I can think of would be something like if for some reason they were running a Son of Yggdrasil, but that wouldn't really help too
Mm,
much here. But we'll see what happens.
yeah. And seeing this tiny gen in a tiebreaker is very sad. And oh, another one, because yeah, that definitely wasn't the best draws for a tiebreaker from the Atsali side. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's the problem with having so little resources available that that you're just forced to play with your top decks. And if they are looking like that, well, you're likely losing the game.
yeah. The Basira ends up spending the extra mana there for the Tuft Shinlong to take it out and removing the majority of the stats for the Itzadi, who was in fact leading there in the tiebreaker with all the stats coming from the Shinlong. But it won't matter at the end of the day. Too many cards in hand for the Basira player. And we finally get to see a Basira win at the expense of Itzadi, unfortunately. But either way, fun game to take a look at. As we go back and see if there are any games being left to be played here in round 4 of the
Ooh,
Swiss.
going into round five, um, all the all the Altered Aces members have already lost one game, so there's no undefeated Altered Aces player anymore.
Unfortunate for them, but I'm sure some of them will be competing to get into the top 8. Table 35 looks like it's still going on, so let's take a look to see if we can catch that before it ends. And it is another tiebreaker. This time it is a Kojo versus a Sigismar
And we're
team.
seeing
Yeah.
two, uh, two Foundry bastions for the Kojo. So there's potential for some cool uniques that are played from the Kojo. And we already see one Haven trainee in reserve that's basically resupplying and also drawing a card when it leaves the expedition zone. So not the most value out of Foundry, but yeah, still decent.
Yeah, it's always fun to see these Foundry lists still popping up. I think it's kind of gone out of popularity compared to the early days of season 1, but, still doing decent enough at this point to make take a Sigismar to a tiebreaker is always a good sign, but we do see a Ratatasker being played, unique, not activating the Foundry in this scenario, but, will allow for a draw if you control landmark.
And this time around for the Scuddy, they do use the Foundry just to get the Bastion boost.
The Bastion boosts end up exhausting their own card, not that it matters, and try to get as many stats as possible. But unfortunately for them, the Sigismar just has too much in the forest and water stats, and it will be a GG.
Yeah, and with just a single, what's the new card? The rabbit. They would have had enough to block on Forest, so they would have went to another tiebreaker, but sadly not in hand. So the Sigismund just wins.
Yep. Thank you once again for everyone that has joined us thus far. That was the end of round 4 of the Swiss. We are into round 5 of the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 6. We'll get into some undefeated folks that are still left. At this point, there are 8, and since this is only a 6 round, we will potentially have 2 undefeated folks at the end. In fact, we will guarantee that. But we'll see if BGA picks the right winner. We'll do a coin flip and decide on the cast on who we think that's going to be. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and take a look at some of these top games, top 4 tables. Do you have a preference on who you want to take a look at?
Yeah, a player that I've mentioned at the beginning of the stream is DSL Woolets. And yeah,
Table
on table
3 it
3.
is. We'll take a look here. They haven't quite started yet, but it looks like we can go to the game and look at some game art. Um, Once again, want to thank everyone that has joined the stream today. Always nice to have all you folks listening to us talk over this game, and especially to all the people that have been joining the AWOL Discord server constantly. Always see some new folks joining in the welcome side of the Discord, and getting these games filled up is also nice. Let's get Wednesday up to 128 as well. I know you European players don't like staying up that late, but come on, just do it. Why not? Either way. We'll keep on refreshing here, and we'll be getting into our first game here of round 5, and it'll be a Sigismar versus a Tasia.
And from the Tager side already, we're seeing a start that I think is one of the weakest starts possible. You're starting to get your anchors in play, but I think starting on a Dracana into Sigismar, you're always losing out to Baba Yaga or potential double play. And we do see, in fact, that the Sigismar already goes up one. And an early play that I didn't really like from Tasia was just playing Muna Druid on day one. So I didn't really like it because you weren't setting up your anchor plays. But by now, I realized the day one Muna Druid is always trading, and going into day 2 or day 3, better said, when you have your Aloe Vera on turn 2, the guaranteed re-anchor on day 3 is just so amazing to have on a Tager. And yeah, losing out on that on the first day already is a bit unfortunate, but the Tasia for sure still has enough options just with the value of aloe vera or the spindle harvesters to resupply at noon and get a lot of cards that way. It's very nice for them.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of the folks out there, you'd probably be wondering on why you would just give up the expedition there on the hero side if you are newer to Altered and you're just joining the stream. But going first there, it probably made the most sense for the Tasia player to prevent that Sigismar from potentially taking a double advance. Even if they had played the Dracana over on the companion side, they would have still gotten statted over with that Baba Yaga on the forest terrain, and it does not seem like the Tasia would want that to happen. So instead, they just opt to give up one expedition on that first day based off of their initial draw. And we'll go ahead and see that aloe vera that you mentioned earlier, paying into the additional mana in order to have it anchored.
Yeah. So the Sigismar is still trading just by playing the Baba Yaga, but I'm not 100% sure about the Sigismar list. I know all of the uniques in there that they are one cost, and they are two 1/1s and one 2/2 character that do resupply when you play another character. So I think they are very, very powerful, and in my opinion, maybe even stronger than the token generators. But the only player I've seen so far play these is actually DSL Woolets. That's why I like his list, because he's playing new. I say newer uniques for Sigismar, or uncommon uniques for Sigismar, but I think that they are actually very strong. And yeah, that will I expect them to have almost as many one-cost characters as possible in the list, just so you can chain resupply your characters with that. And there we do see the first unique of that kind. just resupplying when you have a token. When also when you're playing a non-token character, it resupplies on a token condition.
And unfortunately, with getting that one cost and then having that teamwork training, the additional mana spent on that aloe vera will not help out the Tasia player. They do get the single advance, but I'm sure that they were hoping that the Sigismar did not have that teamwork training available, or at least couldn't get up to the three characters in order to hit them with it. But they, in fact, are able to with the help of that one cost unique that you mentioned.
Yeah, and that's a very nice play. Just early on, getting rid of that alloy is slowing down the Tager game plan a lot. And now there's no possible way to re-anchor the alloy since it's gone. And now just having to play the alloy again and hope it sticks and hope it wins one expedition at least. It's like a very rough turn for the Tager, but if they manage to make the alloy stick and get reboost re-anchored somehow afterwards, I think they're still in a fine position. But yeah, definitely losing it was was quite sad for them.
Yeah, and we'll probably come into a pretty good turn as far as getting some card advantage with the use of that unique here for the Sigismar player. Able to play it here from the reserve and then potentially play that Ordis Trooper to get another card in reserve. And realistically, they may not even have to play anything from hand if they don't choose to and keep a secret a little bit what they have in their hand if they want to try to remove something for the Tasia and maybe even hit them with another teamwork training.
Yeah, that's possible, but we could see a okay, no, we don't, but a potential floral tent could have prevented the teamwork training, or well, the other would have only lost the anchored, which actually is also already good enough for the Sigismar probably at this point.
Yeah.
But I believe them to now just chain play their Orders Trooper and the cards they resupply off of their unique. So let's see how lucky they get with their resupplies. Or if they actually do decide to play this turn out.
Yeah, you feel like you almost have to decide to play it out because you've already utilized your unique and you have a little bit of an idea of sunken cost, even though you would just go one for one. But they do decide to play it out. They'll see a common overseer come out for them, won't get the recruit if they play it. So instead, they decide to play that Baba Yaga from hand. And ooh, your favorite removal spell, Sticky Note Seal, gets resupplied.
Yeah. And I think in this matchup as well, getting it resupplied in this spot is okay because you can just remove it right now since you're overflowing your reserve. And I think there's no character in this matchup that you'd like to hit with your sticky seal node. So yeah, one of the matchup this card is absolutely useless in my opinion. Um, but there are for sure, as I said earlier, I think the best thing you can ever hit with your sticky seal notes is a Grand Endeavor. And in that matchup, it's actually good because you're still up one mana. And if your opponent is just playing Grand Endeavor, you're removing it with sticky seal notes. You have the potential to advance once
Mhm.
by playing another one cost. But
Definitely.
otherwise, I don't see any use for that card.
Hey man, you never know. Like Tasia's have been throwing out the Hydrocina lately, just trying to make that work. That could be a thing.
I think if your opponent is playing Hydrokina, you're just winning anyway.
Anyway, we do see one of those uniques that you mentioned as well that instead of producing the tokens is more resupplying happening. Another one
Yeah.
cost one in the trooper. So we'll see how that works out for them here. Still plenty of cards to play from reserve potentially. So we'll see what happens. We may even see that Overseer be utilized for just the support ability, depending on if they want to get rid of some cards in their reserve if they feel like they're going to overflow. So we'll see what happens.
And at this point for the Tager, I feel like your way to come back in the game is playing a mass anchoring. You need to just re-anchor your alloy and spindle harvester, and the next day play your second alloy to just get all the stats. But yeah, just now most likely losing your first alloy, and also getting your spindle harvester and overflowing your reserve doesn't feel like you're building up enough pressure for the following days, so you can actually get back into the game.
Yeah, it'll be this might not be a bad day for them here, potentially taking it 2-0, depending on what the Sigismar has in their hand at this moment, I have to think, or what they could resupply, I guess. But, yeah, we'll have to see. We're out of mana for the Tasia, so what we see on the board is probably what we're gonna see at the end of the day for them, unless it gets interacted with some type of removal from the Sigismar, and potentially get farther ahead on the Tumult, already being up 3 spots.
Yeah, and I think losing a double expedition right here for the Sigma is totally fine. I'm looking at maybe a potential steep onto the Trooper, but I actually haven't looked at the decks this game,
Mhm.
so I'm not I don't know if it's available to them. But in this in this deck, maybe the Ebenezer Scrooge would be a nice card to sleep your resuppliers from reserve, and you're also getting your Scrooge more reliable into reserve because you're able to resupply. So maybe in this list, the Scrooge is playable.
We do see the second teamwork training pop up and hit that anchored aloe vera once again. Unfortunate for the Tasia player, constantly having to worry about that removal. And Cole, you missed everything, man. It was crazy. Like BGA blew up, and then we had to repair it by hand, and now we're in the fifth round of the Swiss. So glad you're able to make it back for that. But yeah, unfortunate for the Tasia not being able to keep out the aloe vera with the anchored and being able to resupply. I guess the benefit is that the Sigismar isn't entirely beating them in hand advantage, but they are destroying them on the tumult at this point, to the point of where we might see the Sigismar just take it purely from the aspect of overloading on one side and potentially just taking it one by one, opposed to trying to get a 2-0.
And with these types of uniques, I don't feel like the hand advantage doesn't matters at all because you're just playing all your characters from reserve once you have one of these uniques out, and there's definitely a third unique in the deck for the Sigisma somewhere. So yeah, that just seems very strong.
Definitely. We'll have to see what Tasia can do to prevent these advances going forward. For the Sigismar, we will see the Overseer come out. It will not get its effect, but it will get the resupply caused by the unique, in case you are unaware of what it does. It's not the usual token generator, but when another non token character joins your expeditions, if you control a token, resupply. And the guy trying you missed a series of Blue and Runefolk joining about 6 different games in the same round as they were ending. Yeah, that was something. I think that was in round 3 where we just watched, like, 6 or 7 games, and they all just ended as soon as we joined, but it was fun to watch, at least for that time.
Oh, and here we do see what I mentioned earlier, the um, Sandman to sleep the oh, no, of course, not to sleep their own character, but just to win the game with by sleeping the opponent's Spindle Harvester. That's very nice way to win.
Yeah, just completely, ran over the Tasia that game, and it just
Yeah,
got constant advances and won that way without having to make it a little too fancy and setting up those uniques, but still doing work in the sense of getting some cards out in reserve, even though you didn't have anything too much in hand as far as like 5, 6 cards. So good play there from the Sigismar player as we are in round 5 of the Swiss. We'll go back real quick to see if we can catch some of those other games. And round 5, we still are in progress for the other top 4 tables. So
yeah.
we did watch Newbie Boy previously. So do you want to watch table 2 or 4?
I'd lean to table 4 with Spartacus.
All right, let's take a
So
look
yeah,
real quick. Table 4, we're taking
and I
a look.
think on table 2 we've seen both of the players for a short moment already.
And it's a double Tasia matchup. A lot of
Oh,
anchored characters, a lot of unique characters, and we even see some magic beans being played for the top Tasia, Spartacus. So a lot to go over here, but it looks like there's some mass anchoring happening for the bottom Tasia. And then something similar for the top Tasia? Nope. It's just putting a lot of stats on the board and putting something to sleep potentially.
Yeah, but with the mass anchoring, I think this bottom Taja's just winning on the next day, and there's not really much way for the top Taja to contest this. But interesting use of the magic beams for the top Taja. Not seeing a lot of that in Taja currently.
Yeah, it's definitely was a fun card when I was doing some release events for Trial by Frost and just seeing to get it drafting it up when you're playing a game, but haven't seen it that much here as far as actual constructed play. But fun to see Spartacus take it this far, going undefeated here into round 5 and coming up against honestly just some really amazing uniques and good setup here for the bottom Tasia with a Isumbushi unique that allows some anchoring and a Kokoba unique that allows some anchoring, as well as discarding a card from your reserve if you do target character gains a boost. And the Isumbushi is just the anchoring. So a lot of cards on the board. Hard to go through them all at the same time, but as Runefolk mentioned, it's looking pretty good for the bottom Tasia here to take this game here in round 5 of Swiss.
Yeah, I think there's no way to actually come back from this. Just losing a single expedition is losing the game, and just starting a turn with 12 12 points in the required statistic just already seems winning. And yeah, that's the strength of these uniques, and yeah, that's why they're played, and so beloved by some players.
I am seeing mana reaping in being played in the discards of both Tasia players. Not sure how much you've been playing in Muna, but why are we seeing specifically the mana reaping over the new Trial by Frost card in Lost in the Woods as far as
I
removal
think
is concerned?
just because it's more consistent and you're more frequently getting that off. I've also been with my list. The deck I'm currently playing is really struggling into removals, and I've been looking at Muna, what's the most played removal in Muna, and just the I think the mana reaping has two advantages. It always hits your opponent's characters, and also your opponent can't replay the character, but instead rams it. So yeah, I think it's just sometimes very painful to see your opponent not be on a forest expedition, and you can't actually remove the characters with your Lost in the Woods.
Makes sense. Yeah, I've seen some people opt for the Lost in the Woods rather than the mana reaping, and then I've seen other people stick with the mana reaping. So
I've
either
looked
way, yeah.
I've looked at a bunch of recent 39 card deck lists, and quite a few ran 2 and 2, so 2 Lost in the Woods, 2 mana reapings, but a bunch of them also just ran straight up 3 mana reapings. But most almost none of them ran purely the Lost in the Woods.
Yeah. Interesting to see nonetheless, as we just see the bottom Tasia rub it in a little bit and anchor everything and boost everything up. But either way, I think we probably saw what was going to happen there, but still fun to talk about the dynamics of different cards and different deck lists, specifically with removal and seeing how that can go. So we'll end that day and we'll have the bottom Tasia and Circus taking the victory with
Yeah.
all those fun uniques. So let's go back here real quick and see if we have anything else we want to take a look at. Going there. Once again, thanks for everyone that has joined us thus far. This is the AWOL Season 2 Weekly number 6. We are in the round 5 of the Swiss. 4 players undefeated, now 2 that have advanced thus far. We still have 2 games that we can take a look at. So why not table 2?
We're really good at choosing the fastest game, fastest games today.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm
So
just
table
I'm
2?
on, yeah, table 2. I'm on top of it.
Okay.
We'll switch back here real quick. It's going to be the good old fashioned Afanis versus Sigismar matchup. Sigismar is currently in the lead. Both players are pretty low on resources at the moment, but we'll see if the Afanis can catch things up a little bit, and it will be a one for one. Afanis is down 2 with the Sigismar currently going adjacent, but losing a lot of resources there as far as sending characters to the reserve and Afanis
Yeah.
being able to pick up a card.
Yeah, so currently I'd favor the Avanas purely on card advantage, but of course, being a doubled expedition down and your opponent being on game point, still very very scary. So I wouldn't count out the Sigismar, but yeah, just based on card advantage, I always prefer the player that has more cards to favor them. But yeah,
Which
let's
is
see what they're able to do.
yeah,
And
shocking
also on
coming yeah, shocking coming from Runefolk liking having cards in hand, but, either way, go ahead.
Yeah, also interesting to see for me, the Sigisma with their reserve, they're using up three mana and have 4 mana still left. If they don't mana, but they mana one of their cards, so the last card could potentially be up to a 5 cost. And I'm really not sure why they decided to mana here and just limit their plays to 3 cards.
Yeah, unless it's something that's gonna cause something to come into the reserve, like a unique that somehow resupplies, I'd be curious to see why they decided to mono there as well. But we're gonna have to wait and see. I'm sure we'll probably find out what that card in hand is as we see a unique Spindle Harvester from the Aphanis that gains anchored from reserve. And when I leave the expedition zone, if I have one or more boosts, you may return a spell from your reserve to your hand.
Not sure why they immediately played their Harvester. I think just playing any spell and potentially boosting your Sneazer Shroom first to see the last card from the Sigismund hand, and then committing your Harvester to not instantly be Tiny Jailed is maybe the better play. But well, the Afanas has their own thoughts, and I'm curious to see what they have in hand, and they definitely need to have more characters. So
Yeah.
to contest this, but yeah.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it was potentially just a bait to get that tiny jail used, and I have to imagine they have something else in hand that they feel like they can guarantee potentially that hero side, but we'll have to wait and see. I feel like a lot of players, especially at this level, having going undefeated, that they have an idea of what they want to do, or at least some type of line that they think will be beneficial. So we'll see how that turns out as we see an off you go. And yeah, just an attorney coming from the Sigismar, so that makes you really wonder what that why they decided to mono there.
Yeah, definitely.
Makes me wish that I could see their mana. But, either way, we will just see a off you go played from the reserve, hit that attorney, and that'll boost up the alchemist. And with that pass from the Sigismar, that'll allow a double for the Aphanis. And we're coming to the situation where you mentioned before, having that card advantage going into the final days of the game may just give them the win.
Yeah, and yeah, they actually are again on small step point just so, but I think with the Mage Dancer in reserve and also the Sneezer, it's I think already likely enough that they would just win with their characters.
Is there ever a situation that you're playing He is Mirror and you feel like you can win anyway and you don't play small step?
Yeah, I've definitely had that. Yeah,
You're just like, I'm not going to do it. I can do it myself. I don't need this card.
yeah. But I mostly feel like if you're playing out your cards and then realize, well, I can't win, and you haven't managed your small step, and then you're basically just disrespecting. That's why I don't actually do it. But yeah, I definitely had the I definitely played gives me matchups where I thought, well, I could just win without my small steps now.
Yeah. But you don't do it because, like you said, it seems BM, and you have to, like,
Yeah,
explain, like, "No, I swear I was just trying to win without it, but I didn't end up able to do it, so I had to play it. I'm sorry, I'm
yeah.
sorry." But, we will see that Conjuring Seal pop out, potentially trying to find that small step, or just slowing things down a little bit. 2 cards for 3 mana, not too horrible. And we will just see a Baba Yaga coming from the Sigismar at this point. Definitely can use the cards in hand to potentially try to at least take this to a tiebreaker or win the game. But we'll see what the Faunus has first as they start off with their first character of the Sneezer Shroom.
And I think playing the Sneaderstrom first is a nice line to prevent to see instant removal, because I think the Mage Dancer is just the more threatening card at this point. And as soon as you your Mage Dancer, it will likely be removed, unlike with the Sneakershroom that will potentially just stick around.
But we do see that attorney come out for the Sigismar, so we'll have to see if Fauna has anything else left in hand that they want to play before they put that Mage Dancer out and leave it open to removal. But 3 cards in hand that they did get, at least 2 of them, from that Conjuring Seal, so not quite sure if they were the cards that they needed or not, but, either way, we will see the Mage Dancer come out and another Attorney and, Magical Training to draw some more cards, why not?
And looking at the discard, there three of the removal spells from the Avanas is already gone with 2 Off You Goes and 1 Beauty Sleep. So there's still 3 removals left, and I'd imagine they are already in hand. So yeah, and there we do see a Off You Go.
Interestingly enough, we do see all 3 attorneys being played by the Sigismar. It was a regular courthouse for this last day here. We do see that Off You Go show up, and that just gives just enough to have the Mage Dancer go crazy, and why not play a Beauty Sleep and take the come from behind victory, just maintaining that card advantage, not getting too scared with the Sigismar going adjacent and taking this victory and going into the final round undefeated.
And Damien being very sad in chat, but there's the GG from both players.
Good games indeed. Thank you for everyone that's watched us thus far. We are getting through some fifth round games, watching some undefeated players make it into the final round of the Swiss of this AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 6. Full setup of 128 players, potentially looking at this Monday event being expanded even further for a seventh round and even more players. So if it does, I want to see 256 players join, no less anyway. But let's take a look to see what we have left here in round 5 of the Swiss. Don't have any more top tables, but we can still see what we have left on the board. Um one left. Table 48 it
Yeah,
looks like.
yeah, and that's last. That's yeah, nice.
Very
And it
last
seems like
table.
it's over as well.
I'll go over real quick so we can watch the end, and we may see an Asadi victory potentially here. Oh boy.
Yeah, finally another outside victory.
You have some uniques out for everyone. Sun Wukong that lets you do some ramping, and a Repotter Otter, a cute little guy, allowing you to do the usual Repotter Otter stuff, and you can do a card in your hand to reserve to sabotage, otherwise exhaust. And yeah,
There's a lot of French chatting going on, but I can't understand a word. And we've seen that Sun Wukong unique definitely earlier in the game already.
it looks like we'll just see the Sierra player just disappear for the end of
Yeah,
that game.
timeout.
And we'll switch over back to a quick round there, I have to think, for round 5, fairly quick. And going into round 6, the final round. We do have 4 undefeated players at this point, so we'll have to decide on who we want to watch here between the top 2 tables. Have we not watched any of them? I think
I
we've
think
watched all of
Perny
them.
we haven't. I think we've only watched the ends of a game of Perny, but I think we haven't seen a full game of them. So
All right, let's take
maybe
a look
we,
at table 2 then.
yeah. Sure.
Everyone, I didn't go back, but you can watch the behind the scenes of me collecting clicking a game. Um, Once again, wants to thank everyone that has joined us thus far in the stream. At any point, we are in the final round of the Swiss. We have 4 undefeated players. We will have 2 at the end of this round. Then we'll go down to BGA to decide who's going to take it all. I'm excited. We'll have some co-champions, technically a real champion, but we'll have to see how that works out.
I just saw in chat that Cladius mentioned that Perny is actually also an Altered Aces member. So I've said earlier that all the Altered Aces members have been eliminated, but no, there's still one on the final table, and that's very exciting for them. And also Cole afterwards said that AQZ is failing at defeating Altered Aces. But, yeah, with only one of us showing up, that's, kind of expected. Against the 17 members also that joined from altered aces, the chances of them making it to the top tables are much higher than a single player. So, yeah, I think just the strength of numbers this time.
Let's get
One
all
for
the
altered
Altered Aces
aces.
players in there. Eventually, someone's gonna win, right? But,
Yeah.
we do see a Finn here in the top table, so always good to see that as we go 1 for 1 with the Afanis setting themselves up for a sabotage. They don't wanna see a 2-cost Moth to a Flame being played. No cheap Moths in general for you, but, that will only leave them with 1 mana left, but hey, you know what? An Inkcaster getting resupplied isn't horrible. Can always reduce a cost and play
Yeah,
something that's 2 costs.
that's very nice. I think having the Inca stuff from hand is still a bit better than from reserve, but, still one of the better cards from reserve in Finn as well.
Yeah, definitely helps having that available to you. It has a double purpose. Definitely worth the rare slot within a Fin deck, I'd have to think. Just about anything that you can have that has that secondary support ability that reduces costs or any good support ability is always worth it in Fin. So we'll see what they decide to do here. If they decide to just go ahead and sabotage, or if they have another play in mind based off of what they have in hand.
From my perspective, the playing the Tinkerbell, well, you'd probably have to play it onto the companion side just because your opponent can't easily overstat you in Mountain. But playing the Tooth Fairy out also doesn't feel too safe because the Avanas from hand can just overstat the Tooth Fairy relatively easy, and yeah, decides to now play the Incaster to just be able to play a second card this turn.
This does this does allow for the sabotage anyway at this point. They choose to.
Oh yeah, that's actually true.
Um, we'll see if that ends up happening. Holy crap! I got something stuck in my throat. One second.
And yeah, I think right now with the sabotage coming out, the Avanas would also so with the sabotage from the Tooth Fairy, the Fen wouldn't have gotten any value from the Incaster, but seeing 3 Incasters that early on into the game is definitely quite nice, and I think there's not really a chance for the Avanas to overstat this, and the Moth to a Flame to Companion Expedition would just be trading. And yeah, the Ben just returns both of the, or they can decide 2 Incasters again from reserve to hand, and just the potential of infinitely looping your Incasters now is quite nice.
Yes, the classic Inkcaster infinite loop that everyone expects to have as Finn, because you traditionally are able to get all three, and
Yeah.
you don't accidentally mana one. But either way, we will see the Inkcasters, and we will see that trade that you talked about happen as they pick up one of them, and we'll see if they decide to go for the other, and they do indeed. And so now we will still have that threat of the Tinkerbell being able to sabotage if they want to, but Afanis will have the first play, so we'll have to see if we get the moose played or if it's just going to exhaust or what the plan is. But either way, not a bad spot for the Finn to be in at this point,
Yeah. Oh,
considering.
and we see a header resupply from the Fen. That's a card that we are not recently not seeing too often in a Fen deck, but it has obvious synergies with any at dusk uniques from Fen, or also the aloe veras, which I would expect now to be played in this list. And also, I'm not sure if this headers in current Fen is hinting towards maybe a potential festival in this list. Yeah, but otherwise, this I personally like the headers in the list, but I think they're not too good anymore. They're just better slots, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see how the Finn decides to play this. Always fun to see how Finn players are able to pick up their lines, especially with all the cost reductions and different things or different strategies. It's definitely one of those heroes that requires a little bit of thinking, so it's not for me. But, either way, it's always fun to watch and see what the different things that they can pick up. We do see that Tinkerbell finally come out, hit the Pomola, and it will just immediately get responded to with an "off you go." But that does mean that the Finn does get a free one for one if they choose to, and probably throw out one of those ink casters to return another ink caster if they decide to, but we'll find out.
Yeah, and I believe the Off You Go was also mostly played, so the header don't won't get any immediate value to um, to anchor something. And yeah, just being able to keep cycling your incasters is very nice for the fan.
Yeah. Good heads up play, like you mentioned there by the Afanis, probably knowing that they are not going to want to anchor that Inkcaster and just have them use it. They'll keep on cycling the Inkcaster, but hey, at least there isn't another stat on board that you had to worry about, right? So,
Yeah.
um, going into the next day here, we are in round 6 of the Swiss. These are 2 of the undefeated players that are left. There are 2 more being played on the other table. We'll find out what happens at the end of this, who's gonna take the whole victory. But either way, a good matchup to watch. Happy to see Finn doing well in one of these tournaments. Everyone always thinks about Afanis and Sigismar, but hey, we got a nice little Finn setup here and seeing some players bringing some fun deck lists, fun uniques, and making the hero popular again as it was in the beginning of season one.
Yeah, that's very nice. And I think the biggest strength of Fen early on was just the Varu matchup with Cloth Cocoon just being so absolutely good against Varu, but struggling a bit since. But yeah, with the set 2 release, there were definitely a bunch of Fen players that made it to top tables and got good results on the tournaments. And yeah, very cool to see.
You do see a unique back ping being played, being able to pick up a card if you have 2 cards in reserve, so always good for a Finn player, and we also get to see the support ability of an Alice being used by the Finn for an After You, just to force the
Oh,
Afanis to play and hit him with that magic slay.
yeah. Just get I'm for one surprised by the Avanas that decided to stack onto the Hero Expedition to guarantee this, but also very surprised to see a Magic Slay come out from Perny here at this point. That's I think at this point pretty uncontested, except there's a Beauty Sleep, of course, and the Avanas is thinking about playing it out.
Yeah, definitely an option here for the Afanis, and yeah, Sasgard, it it it's not that Finn never wins because of the RNG over 6 rounds. I mean, technically, the resupply should off balance that RNG of things getting modded, but it doesn't always work out that way. But it is a solid card, and a lot of the new cards in Trial by Frost and unique abilities have helped balance it out a little bit. Like Runefolk is talking about, and we will see that beauty sleep. As mentioned before, Faunus does not want to see that double advance and put them behind on the tumult. So feel like you had to use it in this scenario. You will overload your reserve. You will leave both of those cards on
Oh,
the expeditions, but oh, they just
leave the
decide to
home
sleep
cards instead.
themselves. Wow, interesting.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have expected that.
Hmm. Yeah, surprised to see it, but why not?
Yeah, yeah. And I'd believe if you're running, I'm not sure if you have the rare slots in a fan list when you're playing Magic Slate to also run rare small step, but I would expect it if you're playing one that you're playing the other as well
Yeah,
to finish your games much quicker.
yeah.
But it seems very heavy on your rare slots, and we see another rare card that's not the most usual in a fan with the Eat Me Energy Bar. But of
Yeah,
course, the 2 mana Eat Me Energy Bar just feels very nice to have.
yeah, it's one of those things where you feel like they're probably running a small step, but with the amount of rares that we've seen that aren't the typical rares, that they're probably not running 3 of them and maybe not even running 2 of them, and it may just be a one-off in the deck, but we'll have to see if that even ends up factoring into it. The Afanis obviously felt confident enough to sleep their own Baba Yaga in order to feel like they can come back here. But we'll see if that ends up happening as we see one of those ink casters that we know are sitting in that Finn's hand at this point, to potentially return another card. But instead, we'll just have to see if it works out for him, or if we see an Eat Me Energy Bar play, which would be pretty cool. But
Yeah.
nothing yet.
And with AQZ, we've actually talked about the amount of small steps you're running in your list, and they mentioned that you mostly see a single small step. And Pandy thought about himself as an innovator because he's one of the few fan players that's actually running two small steps. So yeah, that's a
In
funny note.
Innovator Pandy, always
Yeah,
throwing in the additional cards just to confuse you and getting additional small step viability.
yeah,
But
exactly.
we see another Inkcaster come out for the Finn, potentially looking at some double return here. Not sure if they have another 3 cost play, I'd have to imagine they do, but we'll have to see what the Afanis has left with 4 mana left, plenty of
Yeah.
mana to work with.
I'd hope a bit more for having a Twinkle Twinkle to have 4 mana available to you here at this point, and be able to take one of the threatening Baba Yagas away.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, that Magping does have a reservability of you can just return a card from your reserve to your hand. Um, Not sure how that'll help them too much here, but if they ever felt like they were going to overload, they could always do that. But we'll have to see what the remaining plays are. It seems like at this point the Finn is waiting for Afanis to make their move, and Afanis is waiting for Finn to make their move, and it's making it a close game thus far here in the final round of the Swiss. And we will just see that Beauty Sleep come out.
It's a very early beauty sleep, but yeah, with only having 4 mana left and that costing 3 mana, I'd almost expect there to be a second beauty sleep, but I'm not too sure about that. And also, yeah, I think the strongest card right here for the Finn is probably just a Twinkle Twinkle from them.
Making a character fall asleep of their own at this point, potentially.
Yeah,
But
very very sleepy late game then.
yeah, very sleepy late game. Everyone's going to sleep in the middle of the day instead of
Yeah,
just waiting for nighttime. But either way, we'll see what the Finn has left. Plenty of cards in the reserve, plenty of cards in hand to work with. They just they throw out the third Inkcaster. Why not?
yeah,
We knew it was there, assuming because they can't mana it at this point because it is Finn. So they throw it out there. They have one mana left. I have to imagine that they feel like they have something else that they can do, but instead it looks like they're just going to anchor an Inkcaster. Interesting.
yeah. Finally getting some value out of the header. Yeah, I think that there was no other possible target for them. They found this game, so they just settled with one of their incasters, and yeah, I think it's just solid.
Yeah, maybe they were running low on characters as well as they decided to pick up that mag ping. It will activate its from hand ability of being able to pick up a card in reserve if you have 2 cards in reserve, which the Finn will have if they choose. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening here.
Yeah, and with the cards available, I this not too sure. I think I just based on the two already anchored or already in play incasters and being ahead actually in cards, I'd still favor the defend, but yeah, Afanas, of course, with having magical trainings available to them, could just draw a bunch of cards this turn and generate a lot of value that way. Also, of course, boosting things up with their hero ability.
Yeah, the Finn's definitely looking pretty good, but I don't think it's one of those hopeless situations for the Afanis. Definitely could, at the very least, eke out a one for one that would put them in a pretty good small step situation with being the first player on the next turn. And I feel like the Finn knows this as well. So this is going to be a big day for them in potentially trying to just 2-0 and take the game now before allowing the Afanis to even try it a small step in the following day.
Yeah, and we saw pickup of the third Incaster, and Yeah, these incasters just keep cycling each other over and over again. That's very funny to see.
Yeah, with a little support from the unique Magping helping out the Inkcasters cycle themselves, and
Yeah.
this constant 3 Inkcasters just helping each other out, buddies, taking Finn potentially to a victory here in round 6 of the Swiss and potentially going undefeated,
Yeah,
depending on what we see next.
and from the Athena perspective, yeah, not seeing a Twinkle Twinkle lifetime from the fan means they most likely won't have it this turn as well, so you can play relatively freely around that card. And seeing so many, I'd say, uncommon rare slots, I'd also not expect them to play Off You Go as removal threat. So I think the Athanas can probably play uh, without the fear of any removal spells at this point.
And we see another Inkcaster played. Let's Can we get an Inkcaster counter up on the board, for this game? I don't have that widget set up, but maybe next time if we know that these players are playing, but either way, we have Perny on the Finn playing just the Inkcaster squad constantly. But it definitely will seem like a situation that they have to wrap up the game here on this day to just avoid the idea of the Afanis going 1 for 1 and taking the game next turn with a small step giant leap.
Yeah.
But, we'll see what they do.
And they are currently even on stats, and that Other is quite nice because the helping hand that's already in reserve isn't entirely catching up to the stats of the Hatha. Of course, they are advancing themselves, but currently this would be just winning for the Fen if only the helping hand is played and then probably something else from hand. We still probably have to be the Fen still probably has to be scared of either Off You Go or Beauty Sleep, but with the helping hand actually being played, there's only a potential Beauty Sleep that's threatening for the Fen.
We'll see the Magping come out as a common for the Finn, little pseudo Anansi. But the Faunus just does not have the cards in hand, and the Finn will in fact take the game. The play of keeping that Inkcaster out in the field with the Hatter is really what sets them up for that victory. So
Yeah,
congratulations to Perny for taking the victory and going undefeated here on the AWOL
yeah.
Monday.
Also, the Aces got their 6-0 player,
There you
so
go.
that's great.
Didn't even know it was Altered Aces until we had Clay come in here and let us know for sure.
Yeah.
So appreciate the little assist there, Clay. We'll go back here to see what games we have left. Might be able to catch some other
Table
ones.
table 1 is still on with
T-
Woolits versus
Sweet.
Turkers.
Let's jump into it real quick before we lose it. And we will have Circus pulling out at least one of those unique Isamboses to start anchoring things. But End is ahead of Woolits on the Sigismar. So we'll see if Woolits has anything left for them. They do have a lot of cards in hand. So there is
Yeah,
potential, but there is a lot of stats on the board for the Tasia
that's
player.
that's also very true. And yeah, I think having the early teamwork training luck in the last game already, it seems like they only got one this time to remove early characters early on. And so the Tasia got to set up all their anchors, and especially with these uniques that anchor everything basically on your board, it's getting tougher and tougher to catch up in stats and also expeditions.
Yeah,
So I think
definitely.
that this might just be decided on this day based on the 7/7 stats that going into the turn and the hero expedition that's also already very stacked.
Yeah. We will see the aloe vera come out, and it does look like the Tasia will decide to spend extra mana to give it anchored.
So no Ogun probably in hand.
Um, Probably just going to utilize, like you mentioned, what they have left in reserve to potentially clinch this game as a Sigismar, and it does not look like the Sigismar has what they need to do it, and they'll just give the GG and pass the turn. And
Yeah.
Circus on the Tasia will take the victory as we have a Tasia and a Finn in the undefeated slots for this Monday AWOL weekly, which is
Uh,
not something I would have expected having going into this at the beginning of the day.
yeah, that's exciting. I think the Taja is still one of the three strong, considered one of the three strongest decks, especially with these anchoring uniques. But Fan is for me also definitely an upside hero to take the 6 victories.
Yeah, I definitely would think that Tasia is up there. I don't know if it's on the same tier level as far as consistency with Sigismar and Afanis because you don't always necessarily have those uniques in some of these lists. But I mean, we've seen Hyper K, for example, do well in AWOL even without the consistent anchoring of the
Yeah,
cards. So either way, good little setup there, and glad we got to see some folks just do well on non-traditional big meta heroes. We do still have some more games being actively played. Why not? Let's go to table 9. I want to see Gamma Knight being playing that Navenka
sure.
and having Clay try to take him down with the Sigismar.
Yeah, and this is a position where the Navenka actually is up one expedition into the Sigisma, but now has to discard 2 cards from their reserve, but still actually is up on cards right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all seen the way Gamma Knight plays the Navenka. It's usually pretty aggressive and trying to get wins before they run out of resources kind of thing, and eventually just take the game before the other person can respond, even if they've been building up resources. So we'll see if Gamma Knight's able to do that, being one up on the tumult, and realistically still being even on resources, if not ahead.
Yeah, and with the Frog Prince starting already on the hero side, I'd expect Gamma Knight to purely focus on to companion expedition, but this of course also l- lets the Sigisma focus purely on the companion expedition and yeah, use all their uniques or cards or whatever they have to contest that. And I think with the amount of cards, the Sigisma still feels very comfortable. But as well should the banker with 5 cards in total being available to them. And yeah, seems like it could be an interesting game at this from this point on.
Yeah, definitely a lot of cards left to be played. I want to thank everyone that's been sticking around with us even after the finals of those games. Still a little bit left to be played, and then we'll do a little bit of a wrap up before we end the stream. So thank you everyone that is still sticking around, even if you don't type in chat. We appreciate the viewers and listening to us talk. We'll have a little bit of a pause here as Clay on the Sigismar takes some time to decide what they're going to mana in a decent spot, as mentioned by Runefolk, with already having that Frog Prince out on the hero side, being able to have that forest stat that's also blocking Gamma Knight on the Navinka. So we'll see what we're starting off here as the at noon token is played.
We just see an after you with the magical training. Also, they have an additional after you with the winter outfits in reserve. And this one is actually unlike we've seen in I think Fen earlier with the rare winter outfits. This is the common version, so it's not losing fleeting when played from reserve. And yeah, with this way, it's not overflowing your reserve too often. And I think it's a decent card that way. But also losing the fleeting and replaying it over and over again to always be in 1 mana after you is also quite nice effect for the card.
Definitely. So we'll have to see how the Sigismar is going to respond at this point. If they have some other cards that they want to try to play on the low cost side of things. Um, That Frog Prince from reserve wouldn't have been a bad play either, but they're going to go ahead and opt for the early sabotage to prevent that Sandman from being played from the reserve. Um, doesn't feel good typically to play the common Sandman from reserve, but I think at this point, Clay's just happy to remove any statistics that Gamma Knight could potentially be playing, regardless of if it is efficient or not.
Yeah, and I think that there would also have been an argument for removing the winter outfits. So the if the Sandman was played, it doesn't contest the forest stats at all.
Yeah, and honestly, he probably could have waited to play this slow played that spy as well, to the point of just playing the Frog Prince, and then Gamma Knight could have only played the winter outfits. We probably knew the winter outfits was gonna be played, especially if you knew you were gonna sabotage that Sandman, but,
Yeah,
maybe we'll see what Clay had in mind. They are leaving 4 mana open, so they can still play that unique Kokoba that is in a danger to anyone as soon as he plays it. Um, but, it is not in the discard pile, so we could definitely be seeing it pop up here. We'll see if that is the case. That would quite significantly overload his reserve after the end of
yeah,
this day,
and I
but,
think
we'll have to see.
and I think just for that reason, overloading your reserve with 3 cards and then not having any cards left in your hand is probably never a good play, and, yeah. We do see now a Twinkle Twinkle coming out from oh, we actually do just see the Kokoba, as you've mentioned. But now with the card being slept in, you're only overflowing 2, and of course that slept character also gets the boost. So starting off as a 3/3 next turn is actually now again a very good position for Gladius.
Yep, we'll see how Gamma Knight's able to respond if he knew the potential of that unique being played here. I feel like you have to at this point, but can still do some more twinkle twinkling if they choose to, but that will leave a lot of stats up at the for the next day. And the only real benefit to that would be if he's able to get an advance here and then potentially small step to a victory on the following day, not having to worry about the stats of the other characters that were asleep. But we'll find out here shortly.
Decides to play Incaster probably just to bounce either the Twinkle Twinkle or the Magical Training, but rolls a 6, so he's just starting off with extra stats on the next day.
I'd be curious to see if he wanted that or if he had something else in mind of as far as getting a boost. Um, he would
Yeah,
have he would have been able to get to 3 with the boost, sleep the Frog Prince, and that would have left 4 in the forest stat for Clay. So I don't know if he had anything else that he had planned to play there, but it does not look like that is the scenario. But, honestly, even with having to get rid of a bunch of cards in reserve here for Clay, anytime you have that, Kokoba available to you, it's gonna feel pretty darn good,
yeah.
to play. So, we'll have to see how Gamma Knight's able to come back from this despite having a winter outfits and a anchored, Orbos Inkcaster out on the field.
And I thought about if as Sigismar you would here keep the Frog Prince the Goddess Trooper, and I've also thought about that the Frog Prince might just be better because it's actually competing in stats on the hero side, and at this point of the game, your cards that you're drawing are likely gonna be 1 or 2 mana, and therefore you still have enough mana to play out your cards with Frog Prince and Kakoba, but actually it seems like the cards Gladius had in hand aren't replayable on 8 mana, so he decided to mana another card and is now on 9, just like Gamma Knight on his Nevenkas.
Yeah, we may be looking at another 3 cost card coming out here from the hand. We will immediately see the Koba coming out, trying to avoid any potential sabotage that may have come from Gamma Knight on the Navenka, and we'll just have a bunch of stats on the board at this point. We will just see a Mage Dancer being played by the Navenka, and interestingly enough, being played on the companion side to just try to block all those stats from the Sigismar that has them on the companion side. So should be pretty rough, I would have to think for Gamma Knight, depending
Yeah,
on what Clay has left, but not looking super good.
I expected the only possibility for Gamma Knight to still save himself here is to sneak a double expedition by either Magic Slay, which I don't think is in the deck actually, or just winning on hero side and playing a small step after. But, yeah, it seems like there's no small step in hand to get to the tiebreaker, and yeah.
Yep, throws out his unique Kappa, fun card, but it's not gonna do much for him at this point. We will see a roll just to get some more boosts and have a target character gain fleeting. We'll get enough stats for the Inkcaster in order to advance on the hero side, but
I think this oh, no, the sleep isn't enough to it's
yeah,
only not removing 5 stats.
yeah, it'll get the spy, but I don't think it's gonna be enough for everything else, right?
Yeah. So very close. Uh, if there's one more stat available, it's interesting that the Claydus didn't play another card from hand. But, yeah, maybe just calculated it already that fast, and yeah.
Yep. Either way, we do see Cladius on the Sigismar take the victory over Gamma Knight. Gamma Knight playing all that they could at that point to try to take that win, but still fun game to watch there. We are still in round six. Let's see if we are able to end off on that game or if we are still going. It looks like we still have some active games going on here. We'll see if there's anything we want to take a look at before we wrap up.
Oh,
Um,
2 monolith on final day. Yeah, that's that's not the best draw.
I'll go to this real quick. Looks like we're in a tiebreaker here of Sigismar versus Finn that are both pretty low on mana.
Oh,
Uh,
which
Blue,
table?
Blue Ocean versus K Steno. I don't remember
Oh,
the
yeah.
table name.
Case Nose is definitely someone I know.
Yeah, so they are both negative on time at this point. So I'll be curious to see if they eventually get timed out. But at the meantime, we are at a tiebreaker and pretty even as far as card advantage at this point. So we'll see who can take it. As we do see the Finn have a little bit more mana than the Sigismar player.
Yeah, and I know Case Nose is also a Athanas player, but I think he recently swapped to 10, so yeah. But with the we here again in this game see a bunch of incasters in the reserve already,
And we do
and
hit the time limit
we
there. I would
by
have
a
been curious.
second.
Yeah, I would be curious to see how that would have turned out, as they both threw their stats out. But either way, it looks like Quesano is able to take it by a second, as you mentioned there. So
It is
that was quite
crazy.
unfortunate for that setup. But either way, a fun game to end the tournament on. Let's go ahead and take things back as we take a look at our top 16 for the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 6. Um, I'll switch over real quick so we can take a look at everything available for the top. Scroll down a little bit. There we go. Tournament results. We do have Perny and Circus being the top two undefeated players, both running the Finn and the Tasia. Any surprises to you there, other than the Finn, I guess?
Um, Surprises. I, I haven't seen all of the decks in the top 8, but we haven't seen how the fourth and ninth player for sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, just seeing the fan as first player here is very surprising and very cool. Yeah, also Claudius got third, so 2 altered Aces players on top 3. That's cool to see. And also Wulitz with the Sigismar on 5. I don't know if you want to do the reading of I think
Yeah,
top
I
16
can
to
keep
swap.
going. I was just curious on what your thoughts were there overall. And then Case has mentioned in the chat they drew two monolith there at the very end. That's why he didn't play anything as far as the Kokoba. So decided to go for the Kokoba instead. But either way, fun little inside fact there. Thanks for the info, Clay. But yeah, going into the rest of the players here, the player that you mentioned in the 4th place, Pavania, maybe?
Yeah,
I also do not recognize that name, be curious to see. I don't think we got to watch them play, if at all, but we might
yeah.
have gotten to see a part of it, but either way, good job getting 4th. Um, well, let's you mentioned before in 5th, we have Glopes 27 at 6, Ben Hall that we did get to watch play in 7th. We have Clem and Tempted Nedge for Altered Aces, both in 8th and ninth. Aomine on 10th, another Altered Aces player in Tackfire in 11th. Uh, Venturi, 44 in 12th. Void Kingdom and 13th. Two Ajate players in 14th and 15th, and Chomp and Spartacus. And then coming up in 16th place, we have Demiak in 91, taking the 16th slot. So very cool to see all those players. A lot of Altered Aces players, some other teams as far as Agite and Team DSL making their way into the top 16. So a fun tournament here of all 128 folks joining in for the Monday weekly number 6 for AWOL. Past that, not much else going on. Want to thank everyone that has joined us in the chat thus far, chatted it up, gave us some info. Been a good time being able to commentate for you here on this Monday. Be sure, if you have not already, to sign up for the Wednesday. Let's get that one up to 128 as well, if you can manage to stay up late, or if you're in North America or South America and want to join us for a nighttime tournament, feel free to join that one as well. Past that, my name is Blue. You can catch me at Blue Oak TV on all the things that matter, specifically my YouTube. New videos every Wednesday. I would love a subscribe if you haven't already. And if you haven't, which I know some of you haven't, because I can tell when I get views of non subscribers, do it. And my co caster, Runefolk.
Yeah, I basically already forgot what I wanted to say, but yeah, you can catch me probably on Thursday. We're again hosting the AQZ Championships. I'm not sure if I'm on the cast this time, but probably Penny will be, and either me, Keelan, or Freeloader, or whichever AQZ member wants to be part of the stream. And I'd also shout out the on Wednesday the RJT No Unique tournament. That's I think this time for the first week. Um, I've also heard that there's planned to be streaming for the new Unique Championships, and that's very exciting. Exciting. I'm probably gonna play in that one. It sounds very cool. Just not to lose to incredible uniques. So yeah, excited for that, and also it would be very amazing to see both of the AWOL weeklies with Americas and Europe's hitting the 128 player marks, but I think Americas is still more around the 60 to 50 players.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll take it what we got for now, and I appreciate all the EU folks that are able to stay up late and participate in those tournaments. Either way, but I can always dream, right? The more and more we get it here, the it seems like they've been increasing a little bit, so it's nice to see. Nonetheless, other than that, that's all I have for everyone here. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you next time, and see you Wednesday.
Yeah.